To order, please. Can we have, if you please stand for the invocation of Pledge of Allegiance.
Mike's on.
O merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have the roll call, please?
This mic's still on.
Councilman Lindsay.
Here.
Mayor Camille Hernandez.
Here.
Commissioner Ron Oakley.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Moore.
Here.
Commissioner Catherine Starkey. Commissioner Mike Wells. Commissioner Jack Mariano.
Here.
And Chairman Jeff Starkey.
Here. Are these microphones all working? I don't think Okay, we're going to move on to call for public input. If anyone from the public would like to address the board for items that are not on the agenda, now would be your time to do so. And we ask you to please keep your comments to 3 minutes. So if there's anyone from the public, once again, that would like to address the board for anything not on our current agenda. I don't know if this microphone is working. I'm sorry.
You've pushed that.
No, it should just work.
Now they're on.
Can you hear me now?
Going to bring it closer. Is that better?
As we get.
Yep. Okay, can we move on to approval of meeting minutes from our April 11th, 2019 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Aye. Now we're going to move on to advisory committee reports. Citizens Advisory Committee is Jose Cardenas. Yes, there he is. Come on up, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Jeff Starkey, and our distinguished MPO committee. My name is Jose Cardenas, this year's CAC chairman. Our May meeting was held on Wednesday, May 1st in New Perici, and our June meeting was held on Wednesday, June 5th in Dade City. During the meetings, we approved the previous previous meeting minutes from April and May unanimously. The action items in the month of May meeting included fiscal year 2018-19, section 5305, transit planning joint participation agreement. We recommended approval. Fiscal year 2019-20 UPWP amendment, PL funds carryover from 2017-18. We recommended approval. Time extension for MPO 18-003 with AECOM. We recommended approval. Time extension for MPO 18-008 with Tyndale Oliver. We recommended approval. Appointment of CAC members. We recommended approval of alternate members to take the vacant seat as of the primary members that left the committee. We encourage appointment of new CAC members for those areas still missing representation in the county. For the month of May, we receive updates and presentations on the draft TIP 2019-20 through 2023-24, UPWP amendment for 2019-20, and the Sunshine Law presentation. The action items in the month of June meeting including final transportation improvement program, fiscal year 2019 through 23-24. We recommended approval. Final Unified Planning Work Program amendment for 2019-20. We recommended approval. And approval of MPO 19-004 work scope with AECOM. We recommended approval. For the month of June, we received updates and presentations on the 2045 LRTP status update, draft 2019 list of priority projects, and FDR Secretary Memorandum of newly designated SIS network, May 2019. That is all I have for you. Do you have any questions
Jose.
for me?
Any questions or comments for Jose?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to BPAC, which is the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Dr. Stovall is here.
Good morning, Randy Stovall, BPAC Chair. We had our last meeting in Safety Harbor. It was Tri-County with Hillsborough and Pinellas, and we do that 4 times a year. And this time, there's some interesting things we talked about. In fact, today's paper is a prop from our report. If you saw today's Tampa Bay Times, there's two items that we did talk about at our Tri-County BPAC. The first is scooters, the little electric scooters you can get around the world in. And if you read the articles, and there's been several of these in the paper, I'm glad they're testing it in Tampa first, because it's not utopia. Some people love to ride them, but then you're hearing they're going too fast, they're dumping them in the fronts of sidewalks, or people can't get in the door. So it's a good thing we'll let Tampa test that out for us. But it is a coming thing, and people like to ride those. The other thing that's in the paper this morning that I thought was good, it's called, the article is called Buses and Bluster. But it highlights what they're doing in Pinellas County. As you know, that county is all built out, so unlike us, they're not growing, so they're tweaking. And they're in a position that they're taking some select roads and actually slowing traffic down, so they're safer for bicycles and pedestrians. But at the same time, they're speeding others up to make them throughways. And this article is about some people don't like the throughways for bus traffic to get out to the beach. So we sometimes look at Pinellas as, you know, that wonderful model, because they're at the point they can do things we can't do, but it's not all utopia there either. So I think they have their challenges cut out for us. There's some interesting things coming up in the summer from the bicycle community. There is something called the Summer Summit for Bike Walk Tampa Bay, and actually it's next week. This is going to be held, I think, at USF. And then the Florida Bicycle League has their annual meeting in Pinellas this time next month. So we always enjoy the Tri-Counties because we get to hear what other people are doing, and, you know, we're doing pretty good. Our staff is planning very well. I think we've made great strides in the last few months. The thing that I will tell you too is Pinellas has a trail map, a bicycle trail map. They've had one for a number of years, but they gave us the newest version, and it was really attractive and pretty. And I know our staff's working on one for us, but they say you get a lot of traction with that. We also know that people like to look at the web pages, and one of our BPAC members happens to be a computer programming person. Mayor, you know him.
Mark Pinson.
Yeah, Mark Pinson. And Mark has created a prototype of an online trail information system. And if we can continue to encourage Mark to help us with that, that'll be real helpful to people who want to come and know where to ride and where to avoid things. So that's my report. I think we're doing well.
Thank you, Dr. Stovall. Any comments or
I
questions?
just have one real quick.
Yes, sir.
Coincidentally, I was in San Antonio over the last few days.
Ah.
And San Antonio has a great river walk, but they also have a really neat downtown.
Yes.
And there's scooters everywhere.
Really?
And we took them each and every day.
How
We rented them.
cool.
There's probably 6 companies, even Lyft and Uber have electric scooters
Wow.
now, which
Wow.
is pretty neat. So every day we woke up, I guess the companies come, well, I don't guess, they come throughout the night and pick them up and they set them back up.
Yeah.
Outside of our hotel, they were just lined up right in front of the hotel.
Wow.
Go out there, do the app. We probably had 6 of the apps because there's multiple companies wanting to get the closest one.
Of course.
Put it on there. We were allowed to ride them on the streets and everything.
That's
which was
neat.
great, yeah.
So it's coming.
It was pretty cool.
All right.
It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Stovall. Excuse me, we're going to move on now to action items. If it's okay with the board, I was asked by staff to move up action item I, which is the Wesley Chapel Roadway Connection Study, to the top of the list, since we have several people from the public that would like to comment. Is that all right?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
So is Megan McKinney here? For the presentation. Thank you, Megan.
Good morning. I'm here today to talk about the Wesley Chapel Roadway Connection Study. If you recall, we were back here a couple months ago. We went through the lengthy presentation where we provided an overview of all the improvements and everything. But today, we're just going to go over the results of a survey that we did on the connections. The first thing we're going to talk about, kind of going to give just a little overview of the project, where we're at in the project process and the schedule, the information that was actually contained in the survey, the options in the survey, the results of the survey, and then the last thing is to ultimately talk about what potential recommendations you all may make. Okay, so this is just kind of the project overview map. If you recall, we have 3 connections here. This would be the Kennan Street Mansfield Boulevard connection. Here we have the Meadow Point Boulevard extension connection and the Windfields Boulevard extension connection. This goes over where we've been and where we're going. As you can see, we are actually here at the MPO board meeting, and today, again, the goal is to get you all to make a recommendation on the connections to take forward to the Board of County Commissioners. Okay, so we did a survey to try to gauge public input on the connections. We've had several workshops in the past, so this was just kind of to supplement that effort. We use the SurveyMonkey platform, which is a very standard platform that's used to provide these types of public information surveys. The survey was available for 30 days, April 1st through April 30th. There was a press release that was released by the county that was also posted on the website. And we also placed, this is actually an example here over on the right of some signs that we actually placed. We had about 14 signs in the study area placed in the roadways, along the roads, and the intersections, so people would be aware of the study. Anyone in the county could actually take the survey. It was available to only Pasco residents. I'll explain a little bit more. We had to set it up to where there was a question, are you a Pasco resident, yes or no?
I think it's under,
That's right where I was going to go, so
Okay.
it's fine.
Oh.
Carry on, sorry.
I'm sorry, what?
I wanted to know about how you guaranteed it was
Oh,
only
okay.
Pasco County residents, so.
Yes, yes, sir. So there was a question that said Pasco resident, yes or no. If you said no, it basically went to a page that said, thank you very much for attempting to take the survey. This is only open to Pasco residents at this time. So it essentially kind of knocked you out of the survey.
Time out. If that's your point and how you protected the system, it concerns me a little bit that the word, let's say, from people from Hillsborough calling to find that out, they can then just say on the survey, well, just make sure you tell them you were a Pasco County resident, you take the survey.
I think she can.
And let me explain for they would have had, okay, so I know that there's some concern about people potentially taking the survey. And while we did our best, that could certainly happen.
Okay.
What we did was, that was the first step, okay? The next step was you had to provide your contact information. As part of that contact information, we had to have a box that they could check that said that they were legally exempt from providing their contact information to public disclosures and public requests. So we had to legally, in coordination with David, put a box that said that. So for people there was two ways, I guess, that people could have manipulated the survey. They could have said, yes, they were a Pasco resident, and then falsified an address. We checked the addresses to make sure they were actually legitimate addresses in Pasco County, but we could not go as far as necessarily to, determine if that person who took the survey lives in that residence,
Okay.
obviously. The second way that they could have done it is they could have checked this legally exempt box, okay? We had 900 people out of 3,000 check that box. Only 5% of the county is actually qualifies for positions that are exempt, okay? So we removed those from the results that I'm going to show you today. So we took all 900 of those people out unless they chose legally exempt, but they included their contact information, okay? And it was a valid Pasco address. There were 7 people, I think, that actually followed under that category. So anybody, most likely the people that were trying to trick the survey, probably checked that box. You're right, the word gets around, they can, figure it out. We removed that from what we're showing you today. So that goes on to actually the next, this is the options. And then I'll get back into kind of what we were talking about. Does that help answer?
It does. I still, like I said, have that little
Yeah.
bit of a concern. If you couldn't validate, let's say, someone's name and the address from being a Pasco resident, if they found some other address to use, you did check to make sure that the same address wasn't being used twice?
Well, you could have the same address twice because you could have multiple people in one household.
What's up with these colors?
How many times did you have a duplicate, do you know?
Not very often. I mean, we had one household that might have had like 3 or 4 people, but let me say that not all those people voted yes or no. Not a lot. We kind of did a scan of that to see,
Okay. All right.
some households had people that voted yes and no.
Okay.
So that was interesting to see.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So maybe husband and wife had a little argument about it that night. So anyway, the options that were on the survey, and again, the survey was geared simple yes or no. We had, obviously, the Mansfield Boulevard, Kennon Street connection, along with the Meadow Point Boulevard extension connection. So that was kind of one option. We had the Meadow Point Boulevard extension only. We had, option 3 was the Meadow Point Boulevard extension and the Windfields Boulevard extension together. And then option 4 was all 3 connections. So the survey was posed as to, basically, are you in favor or support, or against these options? Yes, I'm in favor. No, I'm against. Okay, so this kind of boils down the data that we received. We got 3,108 responses. Now, that includes those people that might have come on and said, are you a Pasco resident? And they said no. It kind of, SurveyMonkey calculates that as a respondent, even though it boots them out of the survey at that point. So 3,108 people attempted to take the survey. We, again, reviewed the responses, narrowed them down to only include those people that were Pasco residents. Those people, well, Pasco residents based on the contact information that was provided. Let me provide that disclaimer. Completed surveys. We had some people come on and, maybe not finish the survey. Maybe they got to that contact information section and realized, okay, I'm not ready to provide this. I'm not going to take it any further. So we only included completed surveys. And then anybody who was non-exempt, or if they were exempt, like I said, and provided their contact information. So basically, only people where we had contact information were included. So that narrowed it down to 1,180 responses out of the original 3,108. We did check to make sure it represents a valid sample size, and the margin of error was a little under 3% in either direction. Okay, so this kind of goes through the results based on those 1,180 responses that were narrowed down. So option 1, the Mansfield Boulevard, Kennon Street, and Meadow Point Boulevard extension, about 54.32% were in favor, and 45.76% were against the connection. We did also have, just so you know, for each one of these options, there was a follow-up question asked that if the improvements that were recommended as part of the study that we did, if those improvements were done, would that change your mind? And overwhelmingly, people said no. 92% of people said no. So that kind of showed us that regardless of what improvements were being made, people kind of had made up their mind one way or another. So this kind of shows a map, and again, this is just a zoomed-in view of the area itself. All the blue dots are those that voted at addresses and contact information, again, that was provided, that yes, they were in favor, and the red dots were those that were no, we are not in favor. So you can see kind of clusters of where people might have voted.
Ms. McKinney?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore?
Again, thanks for doing this. We sat in a meeting and I asked for this.
Yes.
And I know it's a little difficult to see, but if you look along Mansfield Boulevard,
In here?
there you go, along Mansfield Boulevard, you'll see the majority is in red. So the majority of the residents that live right along Mansfield Boulevard said they prefer not to have that connection. I think it's very important because that's the area when we're talking about the 3 schools, the rec center, a daycare, and also the concern that you cannot widen that portion of the road. So even though you'll see the results of the survey, it was close, but the large majority of the folks that live in that area, that would be the ones that would actually utilize that connection, don't want that connection. So I think that's very important to think about.
All right, any other questions before I move on?
I have a question.
Yes.
Of the percentage of people that live there, how many voted no?
We did not
That's-
calculate that,
that's the-
but
look at the
I
red.
could
I am.
probably
So-
try to get that
And I'm
for
looking,
you.
and I'm on the
red in that
map
area.
looking.
The red's
And
the
so-
no, and that's the
yeah.
people that live.
Very,
in the
very,
area.
very small percentage of the people that live there voted, in my opinion.
Well,
Mr.
I don't know
Chairman?
why.
Yeah, but they're,
Mr. Chairman?
they're the people that actually live in that area and see that traffic, how it is
Exactly.
each and every day. They don't want added traffic in their area, and I don't necessarily think they should have that added traffic. And most of it's from another county.
Commissioner Mariano?
And I tell you, I was at one of the hearings they had at the Porter High School and Porter College, and I was supposed to go to a meeting out in that area, and I messed up on my calendar, so I didn't get to that meeting, but at the meeting that I was at, it was overwhelmingly that they didn't want to see Mansfield. I've driven Mansfield a couple of times. I can appreciate you can't widen it. You've got all that interaction out there. The graph that I'm seeing right here correlates to exactly what I feel the people out there want to see. And it's going to lead me to go as far as to the same way Commissioner Moore was talking about. The people along Mansfield strongly do not want to see that. And I can appreciate it.
I know we want to, once you continue on, because I'm sure we want to jump in more, but.
Okay, all right.
Carry on, Ms. McCain.
Oh, I
Thank you.
have something
Okay,
else.
I'll move on then. So option 2, Meadow Point Boulevard Extension. This one had a little more people, I think, in favor. I think
Yep.
generally, based on our public workshops, most people are, favor this connection. So 67.63% yes, 32.46% no. We don't have a graph for that one. Again, we were just trying to zero in on some of the ones that were closer in nature. So we could get a picture of it. So the option 3 is the Meadow Point Boulevard Extension and the Windfields Boulevard Extension. This one also had a higher percentage of favorable support of 65.93% yes and 34.07% no. And then this one was a little interesting. This is all 3 connections. This one was actually the tightest of all of them, which was a little surprising, I'll be honest. But we had 52.29% yes, 47.71% no. Again, still a favorable yes, but within that margin of error, you can kind of consider that it's pretty evenly split on this one. And this shows a graphic of, again, of where the yeses and the nos may be. So most likely, you're probably going to get the same people who voted no on option 1 are going to vote no for this, obviously, and then I guess some of the others would lean either way. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go through what I think that we're needing from you all today. We're requesting recommendations on, which connections should be permitted moving forward, and then there's a second part of who should be required to pay for the connecting transportation infrastructure. And then the second part is where it's not recommended that we permit a full vehicular connection at one or any of the connections. Do you all recommend providing a bike ped or emergency vehicle connection in lieu of allowing vehicles to go through? And then who should be required to pay for those things? So I'm going to let John and David kind of discuss that a little bit more with you, because I think that's a little bit outside of what we were hired to do for our study. So if you have any questions, I might direct it to them.
If you have questions about what we're looking for, I can take them now. Otherwise, you can just take public comment, and then we can come back to this.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Any questions for Council?
Yeah, so just, and then David and I have had many discussions on this, and at one time it's been 2 years ago when we sat with some people from the city of Tampa. What I hear from some folks is the concern about, emergency vehicles getting back and forth, and that's an easy fix. We've offered this before, and we can offer it again on Mansfield and Kennan, is you put an emergency arm up for emergency vehicles to get back and forth, or if there was, God forbid, there was some type of natural disaster, people could traverse back and forth. And, we could still make that offer, and we could split it 3 ways between Pasco, Hillsborough, and Tampa, because it could benefit all if we have shared emergency vehicles coming back and forth. So that's an option. I mean, again, that's the only thing in my mind to consider with that specific connection, is to add an emergency arm where emergency vehicles can go across. Not difficult to do, it's very inexpensive, and that cures that issue.
The only other thing
And
I would say is
if you want to put the bike path up too, if people
we also
like
need a
bike paths.
recommendation on whether there should be a bicycle
Yes.
pedestrian connection too.
The bike path.
And the bike path's fine too. I've never heard of an objection to people riding bikes. So.
Commissioner Starkey.
I am very much in favor with us having as many connections as possible. And I wish over here on the over there on the west side, we had a lot more connections to Pinellas County, because it is a nightmare for our constituents to head south into Pinellas County in the East Lake area. There's one light, and half the county is heading down East Lake, or you have to go down Gunn. So I think shame on us for not doing a better job of planning these connections so that they could handle this traffic a little better. And I think that's a wake-up call for the rest of the county as we develop. We need to have that grid system in place and have it be safe and functional for those communities that are going to develop around it. But I would be in favor of what Commissioner Moore is saying, that have the safety vehicles be able to go through, and then pedestrian traffic with the trail, so,
Thank you.
You're talking about on Kin and Mansfield?
Correct.
yeah.
Okay, but not, because remember, we need a decision on Meadow Point connection and
Well,
Windfields
I think
connection.
we should have all the connect,
Right.
I would like to see those connected.
I think if we may, before we get there, we'll bring this back to the board, but
Yeah.
we would like to hear from the public as well. I have several comment cards. I'll call your names out as the order that they were given to me. We do ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. When you hear a timer beep, that means you have 1 minute left. Okay? So is Brad Jorgensen here?
Thanks. I'm a resident of Meadow Point 2. I live in Morningside.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jorgensen, could you just state your name and address for the record?
I'm sorry. My name's Brad Jorgensen. I live at 29907 Morning Mist Drive. I'm one of those red dots that was firmly planted on Mansfield. The one thing I do ask is the data is great and it's helpful, but it's kind of cold and calculated as well. I'm a red dot because I'm a father of 2 boys that ride their bike up and down that road every day to go to school. I'm a red dot because my sons walk up to the Meadow Point 2 clubhouse to play basketball. They cross Mansfield regularly to go over to friends' houses to play. This isn't about not in my backyard. This isn't about any of that type of stuff. This is about the safety of our kids in this neighborhood. This is about not turning our neighborhood into alternate Bruce B. Downs, which it was never in any condition to be. So the data's helpful, the red dots are helpful, the blue dots are helpful where they're located, okay? But understand that those of us that are red dots have a real reason. We aren't thumbing our nose at it because we don't want the cars in our backyard. We're thinking about the safety of our kids in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jorgensen. Is Chris Dillinger here? And once again, Chris, if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Chris Dillinger, Iverson Drive, Meadow Point 2, Wesley Chapel. Although the survey shows an overall favorability for options 1 and 4, as I predicted in my public comments in December, and as Commissioner Moore also referenced today, the results also show an overwhelmingly strong disapproval for these 2 options from residents in the immediate vicinity of Mansfield, Kinnan, and then less and less so the further you move away in proximity. When considering your recommendation, I ask the MPO please keep in mind the pleas of all those residents who came and spoke up in December with very legitimate concerns, and the fact that not one resident stood up and spoke in favor of the Mansfield connection. In addition, regarding the survey results, I ask you to consider the fact that there are a large proportion of renters on all sides of the Beardsley-Mansfield intersection and townhomes. Not that their opinions matter less, but just that they are less likely to have a long-term vested interest in this area. I point out this because most of the small amount of blue yeses in the immediate area are in these townhouses. Lastly, please keep in mind the issues that Northwood has and is now experiencing. Northwood is a prime example of a connection many argue should never have been made, but now that it has, it's too late, and the residents are now paying dearly for that. Please don't allow Mansfield to become another Northwood Palms Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillinger. Next, we have Valerie Mingay.
Good morning. Valerie Mangai, 30614 Nickerson Loop. I'm in Rencrest, which is right there by Dr. John Long Junior High, and the entrance to all the school zone. I wanted to come today because the survey was very concerning. I'm the director at St. Mark the Evangelist Catholic Church. It's a parish of 11,000 parishioners in the New Tampa area. The Venetian Event Center there is a hub for New Tampa, and their County Commissioner Vieira and the the mayoral debates and things like that. So a lot of people discuss what's going on, and I work there. I hear it. This was a huge initiative to use Pasco County addresses and names to get that Mansfield-Kinnan opening. That's really, really very concerning for me. I went on and did the survey myself. I'm a red dot, but I'm very concerned that it's basically void. I don't think that you should consider that whatsoever because it's maybe statistically relevant. Thank you for doing that. But because of the fraud that has happened, and it's actually public. It's not a secret. It's public knowledge that all the people did that. So I really would like you to consider just not even considering that. Like, I think maybe a lot of you are already concerned about that. I wanted to make sure that you all knew, which I'm sure you do, about the school zones. I live in Rencrest. We've had to put signs up for the parents dropping off their children. They pull into Rencrest and they park all along there because they can't even get their children to school on time. It's such a traffic backup. So interjecting any other traffic to that area during the school times is just absolutely atrocious. And then all of the children playing, going to the clubhouse and things like that, it would render the neighborhood useless. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, Commissioner Moore, and all of you that have really stood up for the people that live in Meadow Point. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jim Davison.
Jim Davison, 17823 Hickory Moss Place, Tampa. I've been involved with transportation here in New Tampa and Wesley Chapel for the last 26 years. I was the founder of the New Tampa Transportation Task Force. I'm an emergency room physician. I was on the Hillsborough County Trauma Auditing Committee, which audited the emergency transfers from Pasco County to the trauma centers in Hillsborough County. What you're hearing today is not unexpected. People from West Meadows said the same thing about the east-west road. They didn't want the bridge going over I-75. And it's all because of fear. It's not about red dots. It's just human nature. I've been through this several times. Tonight, we're going to hear about people who want to tear down I-275. Same reason, exact same reason. Is that what you want to happen? I'll do my best to try to keep that from happening because it's not in the public interest. It's not in anybody's interest. The Kinnan Street Mansfield connection is in the interest of the public good. Your study was flawed because the east-west road, which was included in your study, is not going to be built. You can check with the state. They did not include that road when they did their traffic studies for the interstate, I-275. 32,000 cars a day. It takes off 5 to 10% of all the traffic on the major roads in Pasco County east of I-75 and south of 54. Almost 9,000 cars a day off of 56 between Bruceby Downs and I-75. If you don't have that road built, you're going to have more traffic up here than you can shake a stick at. And the people up here have no idea what's coming. You're talking about 200,000 people. Please do the right thing. Don't be like the people that are on the TMA from Hillsborough County. Lead. Don't give in to the fear. That's what you're here for, is to lead. And no matter what you do, no matter what decision you make, you're not going to prevent accidents and everything else. And as far as the emergency vehicle transfers go, most people come to the hospital by private vehicle, not ambulance. Heart attacks and strokes. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next we have William Togner.
Where's the east-west road? Where's the east-west? Is this Countywide road?
My name is William Togner. I live at 1604 Salmonberry Street in Meadow Point 3. First of all, I think I'd like to respectfully disagree with the gentleman before me. The people aren't worried about getting to the hospitals and everywhere else. We already have those paths in our county, and your jobs, I won't presume to tell you what they are, but I suspect that we're all elected officials in here and to represent your constituents. I would like to commend Commissioner Moore and Commissioner Mariano on the red dots, if you will. If you look at the red dots where all of the connections are being proposed, the density was against the Kinnan-Mansfield. It was also against the Meadow Point Boulevard. If you look at the largest cluster of blue in this study, and I'm not saying by any means that this survey monkey should be what decisions are made upon, the highest density of blue was actually further down towards Windfield, where the new construction is going up. There's new construction going up in Hillsborough County as well. And I would just respectfully ask everyone that is here to consider who these connections actually serve. Do they actually serve the people that are already living in those areas? Do they actually serve the people that have been living in those areas? This has been turned down for 15 years now, and now it's a hot topic again, and now we want to open up everything else. I think that Hillsborough County should have done a better job in planning, and I would also like to say that although this survey is nice, I think that if we truly want to respect the wishes of our constituents, this is something that should go on to a ballot for the district, and it shouldn't be, then there'll be no concerns about, do we remove 2,000 people? Do we let 2,000 people in? The only way to really truly gauge your constituents' vote would be to make it an official vote. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Tugman. Next, we have Michael Kaufman.
Good morning, commissioners and board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Michael Kaufman. I live at 1822 Sassafras Drive in Meadow Point 2. I am also one of the red dots. Okay, first of all, I was disappointed in this survey because most of the controversy surrounds the Kinnan-Mansfield connection. I would have liked to have seen a question, do you support connecting Kinnan Street and Mansfield Boulevard, yes or no? I suspect the vast majority of those would be no, and I think that would have been more informative for you to make your decisions on. When we look at the results, the two questions 1 and 4, that include Mansfield were the ones that had the least amount of support. The two questions 2 and 3 that did not include Kinnan-Mansfield were the ones that had the much more significant report. I think you can definitely read into that connecting Kinnan and Mansfield is not something that the residents of the area want to do. We've discussed the geographic distribution of those. I also want to ask ACOM why, in the December meeting, they indicated that they would do a spot check of some of the results by contacting the respondents and confirming their results, confirming that they live in Pasco County. They did not mention that they did that. I would be curious if they had. Also, since this is SurveyMonkey, I believe SurveyMonkey could have made the IP addresses from which the answers were generated available to them, and they could have done an analysis of those. IP addresses can yield geographic information. They could have seen, are we getting multiple responses from the same IP address? So at best, I think you should use this survey as a guide and not something absolutely to base your decision on. The important facts, which some of the other speakers brought out and which I mentioned back in December, thank you, were that Mansfield Boulevard, the first mile of it, was built simply as a collector road. It is not engineered for heavy traffic. So whatever costs they included in this, they did not include, I could see costs for resurfacing that road, rebuilding the roadbed, if you allow another 7,000 cars more. That will make traffic in the area, entering and exiting the 7 communities on the area, much more difficult. At school times, left turns in that area are just very difficult. In the December meeting, I couldn't even drive past the school to get here. I had to go south to Beardsley and over to Meadow Point because of the traffic backup. So there are significant safety considerations that I think you really need to pay attention to. The survey is nice. but it's just one more piece of information. And Commissioner Starkey, we didn't create the problem. Hillsborough County built all those homes, and they're building 700 more without adequate, my apologies, without adequate transportation, and you need to take that into account.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Next, we have Kelly Smith.
Good morning, Kelly Smith, 3537 Fordingale Drive in Wesley Chapel. I live in Meadow Point 4, which is off of Meadow Point Boulevard. When my family and I first moved to Wesley Chapel, we actually lived in the townhomes that are no longer there, right on the county line where the connection is. My kids used to play in that area and literally play a game of, I'm in Pasco, nope, I'm in Hillsborough. And we have since moved to Meadow Point 4. When we moved here 10 years ago, that may have been a good time to make that connection. But at this point, it's not safe, it's not appropriate, and it's just not good planning. And Commissioner Starkey, you mentioned the need for good planning, and I think that this is an opportunity to correct that issue by looking at the Meadow Point connection, which quite honestly will impact me and my neighbors because we do access our neighborhood off Meadow Point Boulevard. But that is a road that was designed, was thought forward for that kind of connection. And so that's why I am opposed to the Mansfield-Kinnon connection, but I would support the Meadow Point Boulevard connection. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And last, we have Stacy Mccullough.
Good morning. I'm not going to say anything that you haven't already heard many times today. This is Stacy McCullough, 30416 Trayburn Loop, Wesley Chapel, Florida. I'm in the Coalhaven Village, which is basically a blocks off of Kenyon, right at the end. We do have the safety concerns. He's talking about it being fear. Yeah, it is fear. I don't want my son hit when he's out riding his bicycle. We have a lot of traffic coming through there already. They use that as a speedway when you come up. And no matter which one's opened, we're still going to get more traffic. I mean, if you open Meadow Point Boulevard, they're going to come up and to Mansfield to get to the mall also. So it's still going to cause more traffic. But to just open the Mansfield Boulevard, Kenyon, you know, there's just no capacity there. And it's a safety issue. And as you've spoken to, you can see all the red dots around there. You know, we're opposed to that. A lot of the blue dots, as she stated, were down to the Meadow Point Boulevard opening. So I would more be in favor of the Meadow Point Boulevard opening and not the Kenyon Mansfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. And I thank everyone from the public that took time out of their day to come and address their concerns this morning. Bring it back to the board for discussion.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Moore?
So you heard a couple, obviously, residents mention the safety concerns. You heard a gentleman mention safety concerns from that lives in the city of Tampa too. You know, there are 3 schools on Mansfield Boulevard. I'm very familiar with Meadow Point, or not Meadow Point. Help me out here. The neighborhood in Hillsborough County you spoke of with a crossover. No. Hold on a second. West Meadows. I'm very familiar with West Meadows. I used to live in West Meadows many years ago. So that road was built after I came. But the big difference is with Mansfield Boulevard, you actually have 3 schools that are right on Mansfield Boulevard, whereas in West Meadows, you had 1 school that was off the road, not sitting exactly on that road. You also have a rec center too. So it is a concern. If you had possibly 7,000 more cars a day onto that 2-lane road that can't be widened, that's a huge concern. Now, we talk about Meadow Point Boulevard. Now you have a situation there where it was planned ahead of time to possibly widen that road. When it comes to Windfields, that's a long time from now. So that thought process is that possibly could be widened too. So you guys know where I stand. It's not hard to figure out where I stand. And there was Valerie spoke up here earlier, mentioned how she works at a church, with the church. She works at the church on a daily basis and doesn't even want it open. And there's really, and so, if you go down Mansfield into the city of Tampa, there's really nothing, I'm sorry to say, there's really not much that our folks are missing. 2 miles away, there's a little corner strip center with a gas station and a hookah lounge and a couple little restaurants. Well, we have quite a few restaurants and gas stations in Pasco County that are just as easily accessible than the one driving 2 miles down. So I don't feel that our residents are missing out on a big benefit of opening that road up. Meadow Point Boulevard, so the gentleman from Hillsborough talked about safety. You could cruise right around Meadow Point Boulevard, and if you need to get to the hospital, you can get to the hospital pretty quick. Quicker than you could on Bruce B. Downs if you live in K-Bar, so that's not an issue.
Thank you, Commissioner. And just so the public is aware, what we're doing today is we're just voting on a recommendation to bring to the Board of County Commissioners for a final vote.
Where there's 4 of us up here right now. That will
Commissioner Starkey.
I'm asking Manny to pull up Rangeland Boulevard, a map of it. And I'm going to say again, normally I am the most vocal advocate for interconnectivity because dispersing as much traffic as you can is the best plan. But I think we missed the boat on Mansfield when we had 3 schools on there, and you know, it should have been connected a long time ago. And maybe one day we'll need to look at, some other board will need to look at it again. But for now, I am good with the emergency vehicle situation and the trail. And if there is some kind of accident that forces traffic around, maybe there's a way that can get opened up if there's an emergency, so you're not stuck. But this is an example of a major road going through a very successful development, and it's very well dealing with the traffic. It is, can you show it, Manny, with your little pointer? So, I mean, this is expected to relieve 54. Yeah, Rangeland. So it comes through the neighborhood, and it has a series of roundabouts that really slow the traffic down, and it has a nice wide trail on one side and a sidewalk on the other. And when I'm looking at Mansfield, I can't tell, but is there a wide path on there, or is it a regular 5-foot sidewalk? See, I would...
There's a multi-use path on the east side of Mansfield from the schools down.
Okay, so that, for me, that makes it a bit safe, you know, that would make it safer for pedestrians if you have a multi-use path that, and maybe one day, there can be safety considerations made along the side of that to make pedestrians feel a little safer. You see that happening all around the world. But you can have a major road going through a very nice subdivision, and it serves the public well to take some of that traffic off of major intersections. So, you know, sometimes be careful what you ask for, because it can come back to bite you. And I do want us to think up here that one day we're going to be asking Pinellas County to please do something about the light in their county on East Lake Road and Seven Springs Boulevard, because for our residents, it's 7 cycles to get through in the morning when they're going to work down south. 7. And the solution is not in our county, it's in their county, and we'll want to work together. So I think it's really important for us to have that in mind, that our residents head south into Hillsborough County, and their residents head north to shop in our county, and it's a symbiotic relationship, and we need to work together. But for now, I'll be with Mansfield with the emergency and the bike trails, please connecting.
Okay, so can we go back to the options, because I just need you to make some...
I want all
Sure,
roads to connect.
Just get more discussion as well, Commissioner Mariano.
Okay.
And Commissioner Olga, I want to step in front of you, but did you want to go before me?
I didn't see you, Commissioner Oakley, I'm sorry.
No, okay. All right. And I want to say, you know, Commissioner Moore, I know you've been on top of this from the get-go, from the first time we had the meeting down at the college. And overwhelmingly, I get the same opinion of what you're trying to say we need to do for the residents. This is exactly what they say we need to do. I do want to say that the pedestrian improvements on all three should be done as best we can possibly do. And I don't think the funding should be the burden of Pasco County, because we're going to be taking flow from northern Hillsborough, which we talked about many, many years ago when Hillsborough was developing. They could have made all those interconnections, developed themselves better with better cross-throughways, et cetera. Now they're relying on us. That's why 54 is so buried, why we need to do 56, because they didn't plan properly. So that was all let to happen. It is done. That's why I tried years ago when we first did our comp plans. Up here, we tried to look at northern Pasco, which I'll talk about County Line Road later on. But I wanted to see us to put a corridor all the way from County Line being able to go across, put some commercial down to the south of County Line, so we could actually develop with Hernando better, and we still have that opportunity coming up. Commissioner Starkey, you and I took that MPOAC meeting where they had the class on it. One of the things they talked about was trip funding. And I'm going to talk about trip funding later on with our staff who's working with Hernando. With trip funding, it's a separate funding source. One of the qualifications, if you have contiguous counties working together, you can use that funding. Talk with DOT, talk with our staff. We don't get much trip funding in Pasco County. I think we need to get Hillsborough, team up with us, and reach out to make this a top priority, get this done, and let that be the funding source for this, not taking out of our own work plan, which we're trying to take care of our other growth that we have all over this county. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Mariano. Commissioner Oakley.
Yep. In looking at it, I feel that I wouldn't want to see more and more traffic coming both ways, especially in those school areas. There's a lot of traffic there already, and we don't want to add traffic to that. I'm in favor of pedestrian traffic, and I'm very much in favor of allowing there to be some type of opener for emergency only, and do that kind of traffic this time. So in the future, if the roads are set up so they can be 4 lanes, and that planning goes ahead of us, I would be for those type of connections where they're planned, not where a single lane roads come in and just throw a lot of traffic through neighborhoods. They're never planned for that kind of traffic. I don't think we should be putting them in those areas at all. So, but I'd be for the pedestrian and emergency traffic at this time. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Oakley. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, could I get just the diagram of the options that was up there? There was actually it showed the roads themselves. And I think it was at the December meeting we had, it was an overwhelming number of people did not want it.
Is this
Yes,
the
thank
diagram
you.
you're looking
That's
for?
it. So and my question is, the other 2 connections that we're talking about, other than the Kennan Road, Mansfield, are they planned in a manner that they're going to be able to be connected later on?
The answer is yes. So in the case of Meadow Point, the road actually terminates at the county line right now. The K-Bar developer is in the process of designing the connection of Meadow Point so that it would connect to Meadow Point and Pasco.
Okay.
And to answer the funding question on Meadow Point, the developer understands they're fully obligated to pay entirely for that connection.
And that isn't a 4-lane road coming up to a 2-lane road?
No, it would be 2-lane to 2-lane. However, in Pasco, there's enough right-of-way to widen Meadow Point to 4 lanes. It's 2 lanes today, but it could be widened to 4 lanes in the future.
So the plan's been already set, or
Yeah, we reserved enough
expand.
right-of-way for Meadow Point for it to be 4 lanes in the future.
And while I
And I would
know,
also say to the south of us, there's enough right-of-way for it to be 4 lanes as well.
and the other connection further east there, it's the same way. I mean, it's so far out to where it hasn't really been planned, but our road coming down is a 2-lane road from Pasco?
It is. That one has a little less right-of-way as it goes through Union Park. The other difference with that road is there's a missing gap. Union Park has only brought the road to, there's still probably a 1,000-foot gap between the county line and where the road ends. So when we get into the funding question, we're going to need to know who should be responsible for paying for that missing gap for that connection.
It's in our county.
But south of us, that's a more, it's a line on a map in the city of Tampa,
Sure.
but I don't think there's any immediate plans to build it.
But I mean, and we're coordinating with Hillsborough County to make sure that...
Yeah, to be clear, it's actually the city of Tampa's jurisdiction,
Okay.
not Hillsborough County's jurisdiction. But yes, The city of Tampa is showing both of those connections at Meadow Point and Windfields.
Okay.
So are you guys thinking that we should have a county pay for road development not in our county? Because
Well,
are we, I
In
mean, is
my
that a
way,
thought?
in my way of thinking, if it's the developer-driven, I'm sure it's the same way in Pasco County, isn't it? That's developer-driven and paid for?
In general, yes, but I will tell you that for Union Park, we're talking about the Windfields connection, for their own development, they only needed it to that point that's about
Up to the
1,000 feet.
entryway.
Right, they don't
Gotcha.
have any development south of that point. And so that's why we have a missing gap of roadway to the county line on Windfields.
Well, I'm sure that Hillsborough is going to be the same way, too. I don't think they'd build a street with houses right up to the line, would they?
It depends on whether they need that connection. I mean, all I know is that Union Park only needed that road to a certain point for their own development, and there's a missing gap of about 1,000 feet that's between where they ended the road and the county line. That's not the case for Meadow Point. My understanding for Meadow Point, it goes to the county line.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we know that there's a developer that's willing and able to build that connection.
Okay.
For Meadow
Thank-
Point. So there's
thanks.
not really, the funding question that we're going to ask you is more about who should pay for any missing gaps for Winfield and Kin and Mansfield in terms of the emergency or bike ped. Meadow Point, we're pretty confident the developer of K-Bar is going to pay for that connection.
Okay, and I remember from before, too, I was surprised that they looked at the traffic flows on Kennon and Mansfield, and they didn't really significantly reduce the traffic off of Bruce B. Downs. I mean, it was a very small amount, so.
That was weird. I don't, and that must be because not many people are going to use the road.
I don't know what the answer is, but and with the residents, I mean, I'm not in favor of the connection, and normally I would be totally in favor of connectivity. But in this case, there's schools, maybe we didn't plan it quite well enough. So, I mean, and I hate it. I hate it for two roads to come and not connect, but
Yeah.
the residents, overwhelmingly, all the emails I've gotten have been against the connection.
Okay, so if I could just ask for you to first make a motion on which.
Please, more discussion, please.
Oh, I'm sorry,
That's
okay,
okay.
sorry.
Commissioner Moore, then Commissioner Mariano.
Okay.
So, again, I'm sure a motion will be made in a second, but I think before it comes to the BOCC, if you could reach out to Hillsborough and Tampa, just to make sure they're willing to share in the cost of that emergency
We can ask that question.
arm, I call it an emergency arm, but that's basically what it is, with the connection and the pad for the bike lane to connect.
Yeah, I think.
That way
before-
we
yeah,
know when we're voting.
We can, but we kind of needed you to know whether that was going to be a full connection or not before we could have the discussion.
Well, I understand, that's what I'm saying. So now, moving
Okay.
forward,
Right.
depending on how this goes, but it seems like there's consensus to have the emergency arm station there, along with connecting the bike lanes for the sidewalks. So if we could reach out to them beforehand, that way we know if they're willing to be involved in it before we take a vote on it at that BOCC meeting.
Well, our vote could be contingent upon their
Well,
funding their part of it.
It would just, yeah, I know, it could be, but it'd be nice to know ahead of time I know that the councilman for that district, the city of Tampa councilman, has said he would like to see one, so I would assume he would be on board with that, and obviously try to get the rest of his council to help fund that, so.
Did you want a motion from us now?
Well,
Mariano,
I'm going to wait for discussion to be over, and then I'll tell you what I need.
All right. As far as Meadow Point Boulevard extension on the Pasco part, where it connects up to 56, is there a way that we can look at trip funding, and maybe this is a question for DOT to answer, being that it connects there and it's trying to take two contiguous counties to try to rectify a situation, to expand that road from the 2 to 4 lanes? Is there a way we can use trip funding or another source so we're not, our taxpayers aren't being faced with the burden for what was happening down
So,
south?
is Debbie here?
I'll answer that.
Oh, you want to answer? Okay.
It won't, because trip funds are for regional roadways, and Meadow Point is not one.
Even though it's going to connect to,
Right.
all right. Do you think there's a possible way to get them to help with the future expansion of that road?
Can make a motion.
Entertain a motion then, or
Yeah.
did you want clarification? Do you want to clarify
Well,
anything?
You mean the state? I don't
Sounds
know.
like the state can't.
Well, I'll ask Debbie, is SIGP funds available for that?
Yeah.
I'll let Debbie.
I just don't want to take from our existing pot of money that we have fixed funds for to go use it, especially if we're going to solve their issue.
So I would just have a question for MPO, because the SIGP funds, we have to refer back to the priority list. So we would have to add something onto the MPO priority list in order to submit for SIGP funds, and then it's a match only. So we could get 50% and we would have to match it, either us or Hillsborough, or together.
Or together. Okay, so we can apply for it and then,
Well, first we'd have to put it on the list,
okay.
the priority list.
So we put it on the list.
And then we'd have to work with the city to see if we can do some type of an agreement with them, to commit them to be a partner with us if we submit for an application. And then we would budget those funds and submit for an application.
And that process would take 3 to 4 years, going through design?
Well, it depends on the funds they have available. We have submitted SIGP applications this year for 3 county projects. So we could submit next year for 2021, but we'd have to talk about putting it on the MPO priority list.
And we need to make sure we somehow get the wording in that we get cooperation from
And work with the
city of
city,
Tampa as well.
yeah, and work with the county.
All right. Well, Commissioner Moore, I think you've done a great job with this every step of the way. If you want to incorporate that type of thing with a motion.
Well, can I add something
Sure.
about that? Because the reason we haven't prioritized the widening of Meadow Point is because we don't know the effect of State Road 56 yet. When State Road 56 connects all the way out to 301, there likely will be more people using 301, Morris Bridge, to get from 54 to 56. Right now, the reason Meadow Point carries so much traffic is because it's the only way to get from 54 to 56. Once 56 extends, you may not have as much traffic on Meadow Point.
Okay.
And so it's, in my opinion, premature to be prioritizing the widening of Meadow Point when we don't know the effect of State Road 56. And both the state and the county have a lot of money in 56. And so I hate to see you pour more money into Meadow Point when you don't know the effect of State Road 56.
Okay, worthy points.
Thank you.
Just one more comment, too. Many years ago, many years ago, before Live Oak in Hillsborough County in Tampa was built, Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa could not make a decision on whether to open up Live Oak. Instead, they gated it. So there was their cure for K-Bar right there. But their county, their city could not come to an agreement, and that was closed off. So I'm tired of them putting it on us. There was their solution to their issue, then and there, in their own county, to get those people from K-Bar, could have gone through Live Oak, right on Bruce B. Downs. Done. So stop putting it on us.
All right, I will entertain a motion.
So can I just
Sure, go ahead.
interject?
Clarification, what
So
we're
I
looking
think
for.
I'd like you to first make a motion on which of these options you want for, I'll call, full vehicular connections. Okay, we'll get to the issue of bike ped and emergency in a second, but
Make a motion for option 3.
this is just for
Second.
full vehicular connections.
Yeah, so this is
Second.
for vehicular connection only, option 3. First and a second, discussion, any other comments? Commissioner Mariano, any other comments? Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay, so now I'm going to move forward to here, sorry. Okay, so you've voted on A. So for purposes of who should pay for connecting infrastructure, let's take these one at a time. Let me back up. For Ken and Mansfield, I would like you to make a motion on whether you support a bicycle, pedestrian, and/or emergency vehicle connection for Ken and Mansfield.
Yes.
So could I get that as a
That's
motion?
beneficial for our residents. So,
Is that a motion then?
yes.
Second?
Second.
First and second, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Oh, sorry, what was the motion? I got a medical issue going on.
For Ken and Mansfield, whether there's support for a bicycle, pedestrian, and emergency vehicle connection on Ken and Mansfield.
Okay, yeah, all right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. So now I'm going to talk about payment of infrastructure, and really it's only an issue for Ken and Mansfield and Windfields, because as I mentioned earlier, Meadow Point has its own developer commitment. So for Ken and Mansfield, really the question is, who should pay for this bicycle pedestrian connection and emergency vehicle connection? I don't think this is a huge cost.
It's not.
But there is a cost. Right now, there's a gap. There's really nothing connecting right now, either from a bike ped. So you have to fill in some pavement, and you have to put an emergency vehicle arm there. I don't remember the cost. Megan, do you remember the cost of that? Yeah, I don't think this is a huge cost, but it's more symbolic of how much is Pasco County willing to pay for any of that? You know, and I know you wanted me to check with them, but it'd be helpful to know if the board is willing to pay for 50% of it or 0% of it, whatever that is. That would be helpful to know.
Commissioner Moore?
Thank you. I think it benefits Pasco County, it benefits Hillsborough County, it benefits the city of Tampa. So I think 3 ways would be proper. Split it 3 ways. Hillsborough County, Tampa, Pasco County.
Second.
So that's a motion for the Pasco County would pay up to 1/3 of the cost of that infrastructure.
Correct.
Yep.
Is discussion?
We have a second discussion, Commissioner Starkey.
Is Hillsborough County involved in these discussions?
Very vocal in the paper.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I don't want to give you the long tortured history, but yes, they have expressed opinions on this connection.
Okay, well then we'll try with 1/3.
I will state that there has on the record in, I think it was New Tampa Neighborhood News, that Commissioner Hagan did mention it on more than one occasion, and he's a Hillsborough County Commissioner. So yes, it has been on the record in the media that he has spoken about this.
In favor?
Right, so in bringing up life safety, so I would assume they would be more than willing to pony up.
So if there's no
Okay,
further-
so I think you got a motion in a second. Could we just get a vote on
Yeah,
that one?
that's what I was moving on to.
Okay,
There's no
okay.
further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay, so, and then the last issue would be on Windfields. I think we're mostly talking about that missing gap of roadway. Who should be responsible for that?
I think we need to look closer at that.
Well, it
So-
seems to me if it's in our county, it's on us. I mean, we shouldn't be asking another county to build infrastructure in ours.
Is all the 1,000 feet in our county?
There's about 1,000 feet missing in our county, that's
Yeah,
correct.
no, that's us. That's us.
How much in the other county?
Oh, the rest of it be missing. In the city of Tampa, the entire stretch of roadway doesn't exist because they haven't developed in that part of K-Bar yet. It's got zoning approval, but it hasn't, there's no development plans, immediate development plans in that part of K-Bar Ranch.
Oh, okay.
But there's been discussion between the 2 jurisdictions about who should have to pay for that missing piece of roadway that is not being built in Union Park, the part in Pasco.
Commissioner Moore?
Can you bring the map back up, please?
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to zoom in, though.
Yeah. If there's a way to zoom in, you can show us where it's developed up to
Do
on both
Google Earth
sides.
and it can't zoom in, right?
Manny, do you have a way of pulling up the aerial?
Pull up the area.
That'd be great, thank you.
Unless, yeah, I missed, it's 600 feet, not 1,000, and the cost, it's about $616,000.
How much?
616,000.
I don't know how you ask another county to build a road in your county. We don't want to get in that precedent of if we need to improve East Lake Road for our residents heading south, or, fix that we pay for it.
I think the question was, well, there was a developer involved, so.
Yeah.
Well, there's a developer agreement too, and I'm not sure you can go back and redo the developer agreement.
Okay, Manny, can you zoom in on Windfields?
Has it already got the Hillsborough in there? Just not anything there?
I mean, those kind of things need to be done when you do the developer agreement. I don't know why it wasn't.
So this may be an old aerial, because I don't know that it has all of Windfields Boulevard on it. But your study actually depicts it, though. I don't know if you have this.
We don't have that.
It's in our, let's see.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Mariano.
So in looking at the situation, it's K-Bar that needs the road to continue on.
That's debatable about whether who needs, for Windfields, whether it's needed more by Pasco or more by the city of Tampa.
I mean, is that a road our residents going to use?
They could, because it allows them to get to Morris Bridge more quickly.
Why don't we
Okay.
table that portion of it and move on? Can we do that?
I don't
Let's have more
even-
discussion, have more discussion at the BOCC meeting on that. Maybe everybody can do some more due diligence.
That's really
Is
up
that
to.
okay? I mean, is that okay with the MPO?
Yes.
board?
All right with everybody? Yes, we'll table that one.
Okay, if you're tabling that one, I think we've gotten all the recommendations we need. Are you okay with that, John?
Did we vote on Meadow Point and Windfields?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
That was the first vote.
Okay. Was I here for that?
You may have stepped out, but I know your feelings on it. I think you would have supported the
Oh,
motion.
yeah, this is recommendation. Yeah. I do support.
Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you.
Find more.
Might not have been here.
Thank you, Ms. McKinney, for your presentation, and thank you for
The
everyone
more
from
the
the
better.
public that came in and gave their input today. So we are going to move on to action item A, which is Transit Planning Fiscal Year 2018-19 Joint Participation Agreement, and Manny's going to lead us through this one.
Everybody out?
So basically, this item, every year, can get some FTA money from transit planning. It's a AD 1010 program. It's in the tune of $180,000. In order for us to obtain these funds, we have to enter into a JPA agreement with FDOT, and in your packet, you have the JPA, and we're just asking for approval. Authorize the chair to sign the JPA.
Any comments on this one? Then I would entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that passes. We move on to action item B, fiscal year 2019-2020, funds carryover from fiscal year 2017 and 18, and Manny is also going to present this.
Right, so we have some leftover money from 2017-18 in the tune of about $358,000, which we're going to bring into 2019-20. We'll have a total of about $1 million for our 2020 initiatives and our UPWP. So basically, we're asking for a recommendation to approve.
Any questions or comments on that one?
Move approval?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. The up,
Passes
what?
as well. Next is action item C, time extension for MPO with ACOM. I believe John's going to handle this.
Yes, so this one is just an existing contract with AECOM. They're just asking to clean things up till the end of June 30th so they can give us their final invoices. They were originally scheduled to the end of April, and we didn't have a meeting last month, so they're just asking for 60 days to finish up the public improvement plan for us. No
Okay.
additional money.
Any questions or comments for John?
Move approval.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. And then we also have John presenting time extension with MPO and TOA.
Yeah, this is the same one. This is one of the first tasks that TOA undertook for the LRTP related to socioeconomic data, so they also just need a couple more months to clean up the data and send the final
Move to
invoices.
approve.
Second.
We have first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So that passes. Next, we have an appointment of a new Citizens Advisory Committee member.
Yes, so as you know, you appointed Sandy Grace to be an alternate on the CAC. And so what we're asking is, since Christy Zimmer resigned from the committee, we're asking for approval for Sandy Grace
Move
to
to
be the
approve.
primary.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And then Manny's back for the joint MPO FDOT certification.
Right, so every year we go through this certification with FDOT, and every 4 or 5 years we go through the same with Federal Highway Administration. Basically, this is required to assess how we're following up on the transportation planning processes with the state and federal laws. And in your packet, we have a summary of what we've done with DOT. And good news is we didn't get any corrective action. There's some noteworthy achievements in there. So this is ready for the chair to sign joint certification statement.
Any questions or concerns? Entertain a motion?
Move.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Manny. And then Manny, since you're up there, Final Transportation Improvement Program through fiscal year 2023-24.
Can you make it, I mean, I can't, is someone working this thing on our
Put on the
screen?
monitor in front of us, please.
Take somebody else to do it.
We're past that.
You have to have IT.
And I'm trying to do it with my finger, and it's not working. Okay, there we go. I'll do it that way.
Are you? So basically, this is an end product for us. It's the five-year transportation improvement program for 2020 through 24. And I just have a summary for your view. So as I mentioned, basically this covers the years 2020 through 24. The year one is the proposed budget pending governor's signature. Year 2 through 5 are for planning purposes, and it includes DOT and also local projects in there. Basically lays out the 5 years in there. Projects follow safety and security, system preservation, which basically is like resurfacing projects, multimodal enhancement, operation improvements such as turn lanes, and finally DOT likes to fund projects that are capacity improvements. They're based on MPO priorities, TMA priorities, T-BARDA priorities, and also SIS priorities. Just going through some of the changes, State Road 52 from 41 to Bellamy Brothers. DOT has now fully funded right-of-way by 2024, and construction still not funded. 52 and Meridian, or 21st Street, there's a roundabout that they've plugged in money for design in 2020.
Manny, going back, if I may, to 52, 54 corridor, do we have any kind of projection of when that will be funded? Because I was driving back from Orlando Friday afternoon, and it was backed up. I was heading west. It was backed up past the airport subdivision. Coming here this morning, it was backed up way past the lumber mill there. It's just,
so as
we need to play. I know it's on the radar, but we need to do, I think, as a county overall, a better job planning. We know everything's heading north. It's already bad, and we're talking 5, 6, 7 years out, and we don't even know when funding's coming.
So annually, the county approaches the MPO for our top priorities, and we always submit 52 for state legislature to give us money for that. But as DOT will develop next year's tentative work program, we'll be asking them to maybe fund this project. That's really a high priority on them.
It needs. I just don't want the same issues we're having with 54, 56 right now with 52. We know it's coming. Let's plan for it.
So
that's my
DOT
comment.
later on in your agenda has a presentation. They're going to update us on some of the ongoing projects. For instance, 52 from Suncoast to 41, US 41 from Connerton to 52. They all have been funded, and construction will begin. But we're going to look.
Working on the intersection. Thank you.
And 41, 54, I hope we're going to hear about.
Right. So then there's a roundabout at 98 and Trilby, and also some landscaping in 2020. Wesley Chapel Boulevard, this is an application that we applied for, a grant program with DOT, and we received some funding, and construction is in 2023. This is basically the county will 6-lane Wesley Chapel Boulevard all the way from 56 up to I-75.
Isn't some of that being carried by a developer?
There may be funding in there. I'm
From some of the Sierras, developed
Maybe.
work?
They already did it. They already did that portion. It's
They
complete.
did theirs?
That portion's already complete.
So it's not then from 54 to,
That portion's done.
This is from Magnolia to Oakley, but I'm saying the county is doing all of Wesley Chapel as one project.
So we have, it actually starts at just north of 5456, and it will be 6-laned. And there was a gap there. We have 4 lanes right now between Magnolia and Oakley, so we'll be widening to the median. So that whole section from north of 5456 to Oakley Boulevard will be 6-laned, be continuous 6.
I just remembered that.
So there is, but there is a contribution that was made.
Right.
I think it was from the Groves,
Right.
and it's for ATMS. It's to add the,
synchronize the lights.
to synchronize the signals. And then there was, I think, a traffic signal or something. So there's a small contribution from a developer for specific uses, but the county's doing the widening.
But, Mr. Chairman, but that one portion that Commissioner Starkey's speaking of, the Sierra has already completed that on
Oh,
Wesley Chapel
well,
Boulevard.
yeah, yes, that was at the
done.
intersection, yes.
And we're not messing with that. We're starting from where they
We're
finished.
starting from where
We're
they
not
stopped.
tearing that up.
We're connecting, yeah.
Just
We're not
for-
going to, right, we're connecting into that. But you're right, Sierra did do, when they widened 54, they did that intersection.
Yeah, that was completed just last year, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So we do apply for a lot of TRIP and CP grants. We've done it over
Good.
the years.
So that doesn't come out of our regular budget, that's a
No,
separate
part of it
fund.
is our budget, but we also ask for grant money that we receive. Also, these are some landscaping and drainage work north on I-75 near Blanton. So this, there's some lighting projects. This one you processed last year, several intersections along 19 and 54. Construction will be added in 2020. And then also on 54 from Gun Highway to Altamont Lane.
Yeah, it's
Construction
black
in
there.
2024. On pedestrian bicycles, Old County Road 54 from 54 to Little Road sidewalk. DOT advanced design from 22 to 21, and construction was added in 2023. So there was a couple of projects the county asked DOT, because we want to do them faster. One is Congress Street from Lamont to Ridge, which is actually under construction right now. And same on Ridge Road, sidewalk
Wait.
gaps.
What does this mean, dropped at request of county?
Okay, so the DOT, we worked with them to fund this project, but they were gonna fund it in a couple of years from now, and then I guess Debbie worked that in the county's project to do it faster.
Okay.
So basically, this is a summary of all the funding for 5 years, of more than $300 million in the county, averaging about $60 million per year.
So, a question, when we dropped these from the MPO FDOT budget, did something else get added? 'Cause
Right,
we're
so
paying for it by our-
they moved up Old County Road 54, design moved up by a year, and also
Okay.
they funded construction.
Okay.
So basically, I think staff dropped the whole TIP in front of you. All have the whole TIP in front of you. Basically, what we're doing here, we're requesting approval of the TIP.
Any questions or comments for me?
I did have a question,
Yep,
and
go ahead, Commissioner.
I had a Harbor South Leadership Council meeting last night, and Deborah was there, but I was wondering if is there a resurfacing of Little Road in the future in the southwest Pasco area? I know there's some work being done further north, but I had thought there was some work on Little Road in the south.
So is this a section that's between Plath and Massachusetts, Decubulus? Are you thinking of that side? Because there is a section that they are resurfacing. Are you thinking of the south of the?
I would love the whole thing to be resurfaced.
Well, I know
but-
there is a segment that they have in their program. I'll have to get back with Branford, and we'll send you an email on Little regarding the timing for the section I know they're doing north of there,
Okay.
and see if they have anything on the horizon for the southern end.
Okay,
Okay.
that would be great.
All right.
I'm getting asked what the plan is.
Anyone else? Mariano.
John, we talked before about County Line Road, talk with DOT. Should we talk about that issue right now, or should we wait for later?
now, or when we do the list of priorities.
Okay, let's wait for the list of priorities then. Okay, all right, I'm good.
All right, entertain a motion then.
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Mariano, second.
I just got-
All those in favor, vote by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Manny. And then we'll move on to final Unified Planning Work Program Amendment for fiscal year 2019-20.
Right, so basically, this is the MPO's budget, two-year budget. We're amending the second year to include the funding that we processed earlier in the UPWP amendment, bringing the 350-some thousand into our work program. So we have over $1 million. Basically, our top project for the year would be the finishing up the LRTP update due December of this year. So we're going to use that towards that, and we have some other initiatives that we're going to process this year. So with that, we're asking for approval for the UPWP amendment.
Any questions or comments on this? Entertain a motion then?
Well, I have a question. I'm
Okay,
not,
Commissioner Starkey?
I'm not sure where it is and when I'm supposed to ask it, but so I'll ask it here. And maybe you tell me it's later. Where are we on the Leonard Road sidewalk?
Okay, so we're refining the priority list. Ross will go through a preliminary draft of the, everything in the TA project list has moved up. So I can assure you that it has moved up. I can't exactly know where it is right now, but everything on there has moved up because several of the projects have been completed or have been funded, so we just move everything up.
So it looks like we're gonna-
And I'm bringing that up because now that we have paved, you know, I've been trying to get that paved since I got elected, and I know Commissioner Mallory was working on it before me. And now that we've paved Henley, and I'm not sure if anyone knows where this is, but I think it's Henley, it's where it's a cleaner company. They built an office on the corner of 54 and Henley. And so Henley goes down to Leonard and then goes over to 41. So you can totally bypass the 54-41 intersection. It used to be a dirt road, and there are a couple developments going on back there. And so there's a lot of traffic going south on Henley and left on Leonard now to avoid that intersection. And so we are looking at reclassifying those two roads. The folks on Leonard are paying a PVAS, and now it's an arterial collector, or going to be an arterial collector. But it has no sidewalk and a Class A wetland on one side, and if you're walking on that side of the road and a car comes by, you literally fall into the wetland. Apparently, the road is built on the wetland. It goes like this. So the road needs a sidewalk, and I'm really hopeful that
So
in
I
my
asked
lifetime.
Ross, he'll specifically mention where that one is on the priority list.
Okay.
So we'll give you a draft today, and the final will be approved by the MPO board in August.
Okay.
We don't have a July
In
meeting.
August. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm here for that meeting. So don't take advantage of that. Push Henley for me.
Entertain a motion?
Leonard. I'll move for approval.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Manny. And last on our action items is approval of the MPO 19-004 work scope for ACOM. John?
Right, so essentially, as you can see, a lot of what we do, at least with you, is administrative. A lot of it is just requirements we have to do to meet the federal mandates, and so dry, somewhat boring. But this is the fun stuff. This is what we use with some of the rollover money that we discussed earlier. It won't all be $350,000, but we're a small staff. There's 5 of us. We have trouble getting new positions. We're working with the county through their metrics to try to get more positions. These positions are funded by the feds. They're free. It doesn't cost the county anything, but we're working with the county to get the metrics so that we can get new positions. But in the interim, we want to use this money because we don't want to lose this money. So we put together 6 initiatives that we're going to share with you in August. They all come from our MetroQuest study. So this was something that went out last fall. We had over 6,000 respondents, and they essentially told us what their priorities were. And so the number one priority, of course, was related to crashes and safety. So also, we came to you in February, you had approved our performance measure for safety, and we had brought up the idea of Vision Zero and doing some kind of a campaign, not just for the county, but for the cities. So with that in mind, we are going to hire ACOM, or asking for your approval to hire ACOM to assist us with the development of a Vision Zero campaign. Casey is here, we're happy to go over just a few details, but the focus of it will be, I think we also introduced to you what Polk was doing, and they had a video of some board and elected officials. We'd like to do something like that with you. We don't know whether it's going to be a speed kills, or we don't know what the theme will be, but we'd like to do something unique because all the other counties are doing something similar. So the timing for this is very good, and I think it's an opportunity for us to get that message out that we need safety, whether it's for vehicles, for pedestrians, for cyclists. That's our role as the MPO, is to try to provide some guidance and education, whether it's a toolkit that we give to cities so they can do their own version of safety, that's fine. And we certainly will have your input as we progress, but that's the first element of this task scope. The second element is, because of the small staff, we have been very aggressive in trying to get as many grants as we can related to our funding. Now, there's a lot of grants out there in the FDOT world, but there's only a few that we can really apply for. So we've been relatively aggressive. We have a new program that Ross will talk about called Project Readiness for any grants that are related to TA and bikes and trails and that sort of thing. But what we're also doing is hiring Miss Lee Beasley, who is a former MPO liaison with FDOT, and we're going to have her help us to make sure that we uncover any stone and any funding that's out there and available. And so that's a second component. It's going to give us some guidance and assistance to make sure that we're not missing any opportunities for funding. So with those two options, I'll let Casey go over her presentation real brief, but we would ask for your support. The amount is about $50,000, I think $714. But we will come back, as I said, in the next few months with some other initiatives. We'll give you kind of our master list, and then we'll kind of come to you periodically with projects to try to fulfill those obligations.
Good morning. I'm Casey Kersey with AECOM, and really this scope just kicks off us defining what we want Vision Zero to be for Pasco. Each county and each MPO is doing their own policy version of what their themes are. I think if you went to the MPOAC meeting where Tom Deerdorf showed the speed kills video, that isn't even officially a Vision Zero program for them. It was something they did for outreach, and this year they're actually turning it into some policy guidelines that will be considered Vision Zero. So AECOM will participate in setting up that phase one. Lee will also be assisting with making sure that our program sets us up for all available funding through that. And the other great part is, being that this is a federal and state initiative, there's a lot of resources that are already out there that we can revise a little bit for free and keep the cost down. So this will be a phase one. I'll be coming back to you with some proposals of what we want to do as Pasco County for our Vision Zero program.
Thank you. Commissioner Starkey?
By any chance, are you familiar with the funding source called the Trails Set Aside?
Yes.
Is that a DEP or DOT funded program?
Lee, you want to come on up and?
That's what I thought. I sent something to Secretary Gwynn about it right from my MPOAC class, and he said he forwarded it on, and they said that's a DEP project. So I was pretty sure they told us at the class it was DOT. So if I understand it right, the state gets $2.6 million annually for trails in this Trails Set Aside program, and I'd like us to discuss applying for it for the overpass at 54 and Starkey. I want to apply for it every year because we have a lot of trail stuff going on. So, but
Absolutely, and that's what the scope that we're asking for approval for, that John will cover that to where we can be much more prepared for these questions for you at the MPO board meetings.
I'll go back and I'll double check and see who prioritizes that funding. It may be part of the Sun Trails program, which is a statewide.
Well, no, I know what the Sun Trails is, but I think this is a little federal pot that we get. It's minuscule, 2.6 for the whole state, but
we can go back and
Yeah.
take a look and coordinate with DOT.
So
Not
none
a
of
problem.
my staff knows about this funding pot. It's just a little one, but maybe since it's so little, no one else applies for it. So I want to go after it. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think to me, it's very encouraging to see that we're actually
Yeah.
asking and pursuing grant money. An example in the city of Newport is the Hacienda Hotel sat there dormant for years and years and years, and we hired an economic development director, started asking the state for money, and there was money there. So unless you ask for it, you're not going to get any.
Yeah.
So it's very encouraging.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Is that an action item? Yeah. Move for approval?
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. We'll move on to Pasco County Public Transportation reports and updates.
Good day, everyone. Kurt Scheibel, PCP Director. Well, I've got some good news, some great news, and some bad news. I'll start with the bad news first. Evidently, Florida had to reallocate some of their 5311 capital money. Unfortunately, we lost a little bit of money on that reallocation. You should see that
Why?
coming. Pardon me?
Why did we have to reallocate?
They moved it to a different funding person. Somebody
Who's
else.
they?
They did not tell me the name.
No, the feds?
Oh,
Or-
no, Florida did. So this is Florida money we get through our 5311 program. It's funneled FTA money, and they portion it out, and they redid the apportionment. We lost a little bit of money on that one.
Did every county lose money, or did we?
They did not say. I know they said for our area, they spread it out equally throughout.
Okay, so did the other counties lose money, or just Pasco County?
As far as I'm aware of, yes, they did. Now, there's
No,
some good news.
You can't answer a question like that with yes. It's because did everybody lose money, or just Pasco?
I do not know.
Okay.
So, but there's some good news on that. How they're going to give us that money back is they're going to give us more 5339 capital money. I have not seen that money come through yet. So I
Is it a
can't
wash?
tell you how much the difference and so forth.
Is it a wash?
They said it's going to be more than what we got, but again, I have not seen the contract yet. Until I see the contract, I can't say anything. The reason why I'm letting you know now is it's going to be on the BCC in the 9th, and I know you would all have questions on that and what's going on. I hope to find out an answer to you, Commissioner Starkey, that yes or no, everybody did, or were we the special ones? So the amount was about $260,000. So there is that. Beyond that, though, the great news is that we got extra money in another, in another account, sorry, to the tune of $406,000 in another fallout money mostly. It's money they had some left over, they need to allocate it.
Nice.
They go, hey, can you spend it? I said, oh, yeah. So we got basically another $406,000 out there. So if you take the two together, we actually gained some money, but they said there's another one coming. Until I know that amount, I can't say it's a wash or anything like that. We'll see. They were supposed to have had it to me by now, but.
Is this
I've seen it.
non-recurring money?
Say again?
Non-recurring?
No, this is all recurring. The
So-
406, we won't, it's in addition to our normal recurring.
So we'll get it next year as well?
Yes, ma'am. So, but I've been working on that outside of the reduction. It was a whole nother thing I was working on with them, and they were able to help us out. So there is that. Commissioner Moran, you asked me to come up with the presentation for different types of shelters. We are still working on it. I just wanted to give you a quick update that I hope to have a presentation in August, because I don't think we're meeting in July, because that's a normal time off. But that's when I hope to be able to get that to you, just to kind of give you an update on it. We're looking at some new ideas, and we took your ideas into like the tin shacky type of look. Beachy is the word we're kind of looking for. Something that would go along with what Pasco County's image is going forward. So hopefully we'll have something by then, and we'll be able to move forward on that. And then, of course, as you're all aware, there was a bus driver that was killed down south end Tampa, Hart. I just want to let you know that I take our drivers' safety very serious. It was a sad event. We do training on things like verbal de-escalation, don't get in arguments with the customers, what to do if there's arguments and so forth. We have reemphasized that training just recently in our safety meetings that we've been having and talking to the drivers, making sure that their safety is, they know that their safety is foremost in my mind and in my team's mind. So just want to let you know that we are working to make our drivers as safe as we can out there, because there are some people out there who can be dangerous. Other than that, I don't have much more. Any questions from all you all?
Commissioner Mariano.
Yes, sir.
Bus advertising. I know we've settled with an RFP. I haven't seen any buses being wrapped lately. I know it was in the attorney's office going through process. Is that ready to go forward? I know you were away for a little bit, so.
Yeah, I have a phone call with Jane this afternoon. As soon as I leave here, I'm going to give her a call. My understanding is going to be on the 19th agenda for contract approval.
Excellent. And John, we had sent, I asked her, a letter to DOT as well about wrapping the buses for the 54 corridor, et cetera. Did we ever get a response back to that? All right. All right, so I sent an email out asking about can we wrap the buses? Initially, when we got the allocation, DOT said we couldn't, and then found out through staff in some ways that it was kind of like we asked not to wrap the buses. And I'd like to find out if we're standing in the way of wrapping the buses, and I want at least that to be public, or get it changed to where we can go wrap these buses. Obviously, with revenue wherever we can get it, we want to build these things, build these sidewalks wherever you want to get it, pave roads. That's money that we can get in. I want to take a look at it.
Mm-hmm. Last I heard is FDOT did receive the email and we're working on it because they asked me a question about it. I go, that's part of the contract. Whatever the contract says is what will follow. So I don't know what the status of that is.
All right, so I want to find out, can the contract be changed if we so choose to do it? That's the bottom line of the question. Are we impeding ourselves from wrapping it as a self-imposed restriction that DOT is honoring? But if we can change it, I just want to know that answer.
I don't know. I know that there's a new person now in charge of FDOT, so I'm sorry, at the transit level, so I'm not sure what her stance will be on that.
All right, thank you.
Can you get us information on how many counties sell ads on the outside of their buses?
How many counties sell ads on the
Yeah,
outside of the buses?
counties, yeah.
It's a pretty prevalent system across the nation. I know some do not because they feel that the ads that the advertising the bus itself is more beneficial than getting the amounts of money that comes in.
Well, I'm with you on that.
How much annual revenue does it generate here in Pasco?
Around 100. The contract right now is 186. If I go off the past contracts, it was averaging about 100,000 a year. That's not counting the man hours for all the issues that go on and things that happen on that. That would, if you added those man hours in, it would significantly reduce that amount of money.
I would rather put like Anclote Island on it, or Sun West, or
I agree with Commissioner
the
Sturgeon.
Woods.
I personally am not a big fan of the commercial wrapping, but if it's a huge revenue generator for the county, I could see why we're doing it. Maybe if you can come back at our next meeting and let us know, like after the cost to maintain and whatnot, how much the county's actually making. I'd just love to know what that figure is.
Yeah, the contract, I believe, right now is around 189,000 a year for all of them. That's about right. After the maintenance and the things that
I'd
go
like to know
along,
what the net figure
traveling,
is.
I can look into the net figure.
Please, thank you.
comment from you? So I want to be sure that we always have a staff member at T-BARTA. And if it's a transit, I think that's you. But if not, we just need to have someone, I think a staff member attending the T-BARTA meeting. The last few times, there has been nobody. As a matter of fact, our last T-BARTA meeting, not one county sent any staff person, which is interesting to me.
I do try and attend those meetings. Unfortunately, they do them Friday mornings, and so a lot of other meetings I get at that time. And I've had some staff turnover where I can't send, I needed to go to the other one.
Yeah.
I believe there's one later today, if I'm not mistaken, T-BARTA.
No.
There's one coming up that, like this Friday, I will not be able to attend because I have some other meetings, local meetings that I need to attend on that time.
I don't have one for Friday. We had one, well, we hosted the TMA meeting this week, and that was very well attended. And I'm sorry, no one else came, but Commissioner Mariano was there. But I think it was a great meeting, and I really thank you to the staff. And they told us we could have that meeting there again.
Yes.
And that they would give us a bigger room, because we had a lot of people there. People came up from, citizens came up from St. Pete Beach and Tampa and spoke, and I think everyone enjoyed that meeting very much.
Thank you both for representing the board as well in the meeting. Anything else?
And apparently, we're going to start putting in some well, I think it's still a year out, but we'll be putting some landscaping around some of your bus shelters on 19, so that should be very nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully to put a couple of trees or something around them so that even for a bus bench, putting a tree there. And I'm going to be looking into that, can we put a tree there? Because just a tree with a little bit of shade on the
Yeah.
bus bench can be beneficial.
So I was out at 4G Ranch, looking at their tree farm, and once again, and I've mentioned this to folks at Dade City and Zephyr Hills, but they will give the county or the city their trees. They have thousands of trees. They
What's
have
the name of this
oak
place?
trees, they have crepe myrtles, they have Florida holly,
What was the name of this place again, ma'am?
4G Ranch.
4G Ranch.
And the park department, I believe, has a truck and a spade, but what they'll do is they'll spade it and put it on the back of the truck, whatever truck you bring, and it's yours to put in the ground.
Yeah, the one thing I have to look at is, the road clearances and all the
Right.
land use
You
stuff
may
and so
have-
forth.
But I think you could put crepe myrtles. They don't have palm trees, which may be best for you, I don't know. But just want to make sure that,
But if we can put something else there, just, even if it gives just, even a bush with a little bit of shade
Yeah.
can make the difference on a hot afternoon.
well, and I say that for the bike trails. We have a lot of trails. There's a lot of trails that could benefit from some shade, and even the new one here on State Road 52. And I did bring up at the TMA meeting, and apparently this is a problem down in southern Hillsborough County, but the Kogan grass is spreading. And I mentioned that to DOT, to Secretary Gwynn, and he sent out an email. And I see someone has sprayed a patch of it that was brought in when they widened 52 over here. But it's still spreading down the road. It's one of the 10 most invasive plants in the world. And I'm telling you, if you don't get on it, we're gonna regret it. And they said that in Hillsborough County, they are aggressively cleaning the Kogan grass out of their rights of ways. Because when you mow it, the seeds get on the mower, you take it to another place, and the seeds drop from the mower, and you're just spreading it all over. And it can be treated, but you have to spray, cut, 3 or 4 times. But if you drive down 52, you'll see it on the side where they've sprayed it brown. But then it's all over in other places where it hasn't been sprayed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to status reports. Wally Blaine with Tyndall Oliver is here to go over the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan Status Update.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Wally Blaine, Tyndale Oliver for the record. I do want to quickly go over just an update for the LRTP. I know you've had a long meeting on a couple more things so far, but I want to go over just a review of what we're looking at from the growth projections and the forecast, kind of bring that back to you just as a reminder. It's been a couple months since we've talked about it. Let you know that we did receive and what the priorities have been from the public comment that were received through the different surveys that were done, how we're folding that into the needs development for the long-range transportation plan, and then give you an idea of where we are. When I was here back in April, talked about revenue scenarios, possibility of new revenues, give you a little bit more on that. I've revised some of that information. Hopefully it's a little more clear what we're trying to attempt to that and where we'll be heading over the next couple of months as we do some work working on getting to the cost feasible plan to come back to you for August. And then I'll wrap up just with the schedule and a quick reminder that the LRTP is due for adoption in December of this year. So from a growth perspective, we are referencing what the Bureau of Economic Business Research out of the University of Florida projects as a countywide growth number. And this is from a couple of years ago when the analysis was going on, a number that gets the population up to about 795,600. It is lower than what was projected for your 2040 plan. I've recently looked at even the more recent estimates that are coming out of University of Florida. They do those annually. They are still projecting that the 2045 number is even lower now than what was showed here. So they are showing, just from a statewide perspective in growth, kind of a metering of the growth perspective. But you do see, as 2015 is our base year, that does represent about a 64% growth over what you had in 2015. Employment growing a little bit quicker than that. We worked with economic development folks from Pasco County and talked about growth in jobs, types of and sectors of jobs, as well as timing of that to come up with these numbers. And then just a quick summary of what that looks like from your countywide market areas for growth, both in the preservation of the rural area with small amounts of both the jobs and the population going in that way. The jobs number on the east side is a little bit higher. A lot of that dealt with the coordination with the city of Zephyr Hills and the desire for an industrial area around the airport and those plans on the east side of the county. Overwhelmingly, the majority of the growth is in the South Market area as well as the Central Market area. A lot of that under the MPUDs that the county already has in place now, but planned growth consistent with your comprehensive plan and then redevelopment opportunities on the West Harbors Market area.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Mariano.
On the West Market area, are you sure that number is accurate?
Yeah, some of the areas that are in there, you've got the Four Corners area of Little and Acubulas. There's a planning overlay district that's there that's not caught on yet. Because we're starting with 2015 as the base, and I'm not exactly sure where the Mitchell Ranch area lies in with it, but some of the existing things that have happened as well are captured in that number. Some of the things that have happened in the last 4 to 5 years are captured in these numbers as well.
I'm just that population number seems low to me. Anyone else think the same way?
So this would be
10%?
10% of the
current
growth.
population, though, right?
So if we look at
growth.
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, I'm good. Sorry.
So you did back in April, June timeframe last year, you did a MetroQuest survey just of the Pasco residents, asking them what their key themes were. You heard already in the scope that you approved for the Vision Zero campaign comes because the #1 theme was safety reduction. Roadway capacity, signal technology, and coordination then were the other two top priorities. People prioritize those on a scale of 1 to 5, their scores, and you can see that they're not great in disparity where all these top, or where the priorities are that folks recognized and identified, but did want to point out those 3 key themes as we move forward with that. The other survey that was done was the Regional MetroQuest survey that was done at the, I believe it was the end of last year, beginning of this calendar year, with Hillsborough and Pinellas, and so the green bars represent the responses from Pasco residents. The key themes that came from that survey: fixing traffic jams, providing alternatives to driving, and then a desire for shorter commutes, kind of how we look at our land use connections. So those were the themes that we heard from residents as we move forward. One of the important things we'll need to consider as we move forward is not only identifying the needs, but how do we allocate the revenues for specific project types and make sure we're addressing in areas where needs are identified. So from the highway capacity side, there was a copy of this map in your packet. There's also a table of listing the projects that are identified in there. A couple of things of note: that this map is based on what is already in your transportation improvement program. What you heard Manny previously mentioned. So you'll see things like the 6th laning of Wesley Chapel Boulevard is already considered a base condition for this analysis. It's in there and included. The other things that we've added in the plan are it's built on the 2040 plan, but there are some new additions in certain areas. And so up in the Hudson area, we've got the Colony extension as well as the Hicks extension for providing better connectivity through there. In the south, along the South County area, you see the continuation of Tower Road, parallel to 54, making those connections. You also have a lot of developer-related projects on the east side of the county, specifically in the connected cities and the Village of Pasadena Hills areas. And then there was, again, some additional coordination with the city of Zephyr Hills on the east side of 301 and some of those connections over to Old Lakeland Highway and up to Dade City as well. From a high-level analysis, we're looking at what does this result in, and so just a summary table for you here based on local roads, city and county roads, as well as state roads, whether they're new roads or widened roads that are being proposed as the needs. We do have about 6 interchanges that are included as well, and then you see listed as the interstates that also includes the Suncoast Parkway as far as lane miles being added. In total, the cost is about $7.6 billion. What we're finding is that the cost estimates that we're basing this off of, just a unit cost of construction, are higher than they were when the 2040 plan was developed. So this number is considerably higher than what was proposed from the 2040 plan moving forward. Over the next months, we'll be working with staff to kind of get a better handle on some of these. We may see some adjustments either up or down in these costs as project components may already be in the work program, but we'll bring you back specific project level details on these as well. On the transit side, also built on the 2040 transit needs from the 2040 LRTP. It also considers recent changes that were adopted as part of the 10-year transit development plan that were developed with Pasco County Transit. Some specific changes would be that there is an express service across State Road 52 east to west. That was not part of the 2040 plan. But there's also some new local bus service up in the Hudson area that's been added, as well as service along in and around the Lakeland Land O'Lakes area on US 41. From a cost needs summary, there's the addition of about 33 new routes being added, as well as expansion for nights and weekends on the existing service. And you can see how those are broken down then as far as annual operating costs. The total operating costs for those are based on when the service would begin. So as we develop that cost feasible plan and bring that back in August, we'll have more detail about the timing and total cost for the transit service.
Quick question.
I have some.
Commissioner Moore?
Sorry, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Ridge Road extension, have we taken that into consideration for connecting the west side with the central side to connect to our bus service on 41?
So we did show as part of, I didn't mention when I showed this map earlier, the pink highlights are to identify where the new projects are. And so you can see Ridge Road is shown there between Moon Lake over to Suncoast as a blue 4-lane road. Right. So it is part of our base assumptions that's there. There's also then on the transit local service that would be provided along Ridge Road over to Connerton area.
Okay, good. Because that's a good connection for people from the west side and get to 41. They can pick up that service on 41 to possibly, get to 54.
Yeah, and there was also some circulator service kind of along the US 41 that's proposed as part of the transit development plan in the next 10 years.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Starkey?
Can you go back to that map?
Yes, ma'am.
Tower Road. I don't even see it on this one. The Tower Road flyover. And I believe we need to, sometime in the next year, start talking about that and maybe bringing it forward. That's going to be an important road to help relieve 54. And on this one, it's not, this is the transit map.
This is the transit map, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Do you want me to go back to the highway map?
Yeah. I know, I saw it there, and then, so there's Tower.
Yes.
And when I look here, it says 2040, so when are we thinking of starting to talk about it?
So this is the 2045 plan. This is what we know is projected to be needed between now and 2045. Okay. We haven't gone through the funding and revenue availability analysis to say when things would happen, and certainly that'll fall out based on priority, but then through discussions with the board and staff about what needs to be done and when is for project continuity.
Okay.
So those are to come.
And you're showing the interchange there on the, at Tower and Suncoast. Has that been approved, or is something we need to discuss?
My understanding is that we're still waiting to hear back from the Turnpike Authority, Turnpike Enterprise, on the analysis that they were doing for that, yes.
Mr. Chairman, while you're on the same slide talking about interchanges, we're supposed to be looking at one up on Cruz Lake where Denton Avenue kind of is parallel to it. Interchange that's not on the circle at all. Any reason why?
We can add it.
Okay.
So you said that was at Denton and Suncoast?
Yeah, it's actually East Road. There's like a bridge up by Cruz Lake, and it's a kind of an easy interchange to put off. But they were supposed to be looking at that a couple of years ago.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Looking at that map, if you could go back to that for a second, just thinking of us over on the west side and all the residents who drive down Trinity Boulevard, down into Pinellas County, there's nothing there there are no plans to help relieve that traffic.
All we have is 19 and Seven Springs Boulevard, right? Heading south. I'm not sure what the answer is, but yeah.
I don't know what the answer is either, but yeah. I see no plans for any kind of relief for anybody.
So, Commissioner, you raise a good point. While we bring this for you as the needs, what I should tell you is, as this has been coordinated with the region, so that includes Hernando Citrus MPO, Hillsborough, and Pinellas. This would be needs alternative number 5 that's been tested by the MPOs. And so one of the things that was tested in coordination with Pinellas was 6-laning of East Lake down that corridor. What would it mean then if Trinity Boulevard was 6-laned as well? So kind of where we're at right now, Pinellas County has taken out that 6-laning when they're looking at it. And so you kind of mentioned this earlier, as people are heading south, it would create more of a bottleneck to widen the capacity or widen the lanes in Pasco that kind of funnel down to the existing configuration in Pinellas. But that is a consideration that has been looked at. We can maybe talk more with Pinellas about what their what they're considering on their side as well, just moving that forward.
And what about Gun Highway?
Yeah, so Gun Highway, in years past, has been 4-laned all the way to the county line. Hillsborough County has a community plan for the Keystone Odessa area that restricts that to 2 lanes. So recognizing that that they're going to maintain the rural nature and preserve that and keep that as 2 lanes. The decision has been made at this point in time to show 54 as 4 lanes just down to Interlochen. That's that next street south of 54. And then use that distance between Interlochen and the county line to taper down to 2 lanes for consistency with Hillsborough.
So it'll just be one continuous snake of cars.
Yeah, Gun Highway's tough. If you're heading east and someone's in front of you trying to turn left, you have a long wait, and it backs everything up, so.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple more things if we have time, or?
Yep, of course.
So we talked about revenues. You've talked about those a little bit as well. When I was back here in April, I threw at you some stuff about revenue scenarios and new revenues, and I confused the heck out of the whole room. So hopefully this will make this a little more succinct. So first thing I wanted to do is talk about what are the existing revenue sources that you receive on an annual or recurring basis. There are certainly other grant revenues that come in, but when we look at what our available revenues are as we're making the plan and what those projections are, this is really the bulk of what we're looking at. From federal dollars that are attributable, they come to the MPO from the federal government because of your status within the urbanized area. And so that's the Surface Transportation Program or the Transportation Alternatives Program, transportation alternatives specifically for bicycle pedestrian projects. We also are working and coordinating with DOT on the state revenues that are available. And so those come as far as the strategic intermodal system, our major capacity or major highway roads, I-75, Suncoast Parkway, a portion of State Road 54. The other state arterial funding that's there as well. And then there's some transit operating supports from the state.
Mr. Blaine, could I just go back real quick? I just misspoke. I was referencing, I said Gun Highway. I was referencing Tarpon Avenue returns into Keystone Road. Is there any plans to widen that road at all or no?
Say the road name again, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Tarpon Avenue heading east where it turns into Keystone.
My understanding is Tarpon is in Pinellas. Is that east-west connection? My understanding is it's the same case, that Keystone is 2 lanes in Hillsborough. And then Tarpon, I think Pinellas County recently made some bicycle and pedestrian improvements along Tarpon, but there's, to my knowledge, not any, no plans to widen Tarpon either. But for the planning process, we also have local revenues that are available. Those are the fuel taxes that primarily go for maintenance and operating activities. The mobility fees that the Board of County Commissioners approved recently. The penny for Pasco has this little asterisk beside it because we all like records with asterisks beside them, right? It does sunset currently in 2024. So our first assumption will be that that revenue is not there in 2025, but I've got some scenarios that I want to build for you that kind of show you what that might look like, as well as the tax increment financing that's available in Village of Pasadena Hills and some of the CRA areas. And there's transit revenues that become available as well because of the transit system, and a lot of that is still to be determined as that transit system gets built for the cost feasible plan. So hopefully this graphic on the bottom will help clarify a little bit of how I'm getting to my revenue picture. In the blue is the Transportation Improvement Program that you just discussed that shows committed revenues through 2024. When we talk about the revenue available for new projects, we're talking about beyond that 5-year period. So we're looking at from 2025 out to 2045 as we look at the revenues that are available and how we'll fund and prioritize projects for specific programming. In total, those revenue sources that are available between 2025 and 2045 are about $3.2 billion. So as a point of reference, $7.6 billion was the cost of our roadway needs as we have them estimated right now. So we'll work through, definitely need to prioritize projects for funding. So what do these scenarios look like? Well, if we were to say what's reasonably available beyond 2025, we would have to go with our existing revenues and assume that the penny for Pasco has sunset and that's not a revenue that's available for transportation. We can make the assumption and move to scenario 1 that says, no, we think Pasco County residents have supported this in the past. The Board of County Commissioners may be able to identify the need and put it out for referendum, and it may be supported by the voters, and it would move forward and be a revenue source that we would extend through 2045, using the same assumptions of about 18% of that penny that goes for transportation today. And then we have additional scenarios that throw in options for what's referred to as the Charter County Regional Transportation System Surtax. That's a mouthful. This is the penny that Hillsborough, just passed in this last election cycle. The decision can be made to levy that at a half a penny or a full penny.
Do you have to be a charter county? Because we're not.
You
so-
don't have to be a charter county. There was an amendment to that part of the legislation within the last 10 years that basically allows Pasco as a member of TBARTA to levy that as under the regional transportation. It was just a charter county system surtax. They changed it to be a charter county regional transportation system surtax.
I have no interest in that.
So we've built a couple of scenarios of either a half penny or a full penny, depending on the pleasure and kind of what the expectation is of that money. We threw in these years of 2028 and 2038 as the 2 time periods for starting that, because again, as the discussion from April we had, bringing to the voters a decision about renewing the current penny and an additional penny at the same election cycle is probably not a reasonable expectation. So we've kind of jumped out and said, if that was to happen at the next election cycle, is it reasonable or is it feasible to do?
Mr. Blaine, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Commissioner Mariano.
Just a quick thought, as far as not wanting to put another penny on the voters, to work with what's in there and renewing the penny, it may be a point in time we take a look at. I think we did a great job adding economic development money in the past penny. I don't want to cut the transportation down a little bit, but we want to look real closely at environmental lands. Maybe it's time to build more trails, sidewalks where we need to get them in, certain areas, whether it be Henley, whether it be Trinity or wherever. That may be something that could help our transportation budget. We've got plenty of time to think about it, but maybe just throw that on the radar.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. And listen, I appreciate you're going through every scenario though too, but I do get, you probably heard it before from me, especially in workshops, I do get frustrated when we have outside consultants or staff start bringing new taxes to us. I don't appreciate it. I don't. Let the boards make those decisions and bring those up. I don't need people from the outside to come and start bringing new taxes to us. So,
Okay.
I'll say to that.
So just real quickly, I'll throw these up. I'll skip over. If you look at your base condition scenarios, you'll have about $3.2 billion. If you add in the penny for Pasco, you would have $335 million. And then certainly these different scenarios generate different amounts of revenues. And I think the question today is, as we move forward into the cost feasible plan, is there a preference on how we would move forward with identifying available revenues against our transportation needs and our cost of projects? So certainly an opportunity to kind of to seek direction on how to move forward with identifying what revenues we would look for at doing transportation funding.
Mr. Chairman? On the scenario 1, can you go back to the slide before this? The one with the penny where you're talking about. Didn't you have one? What was the one before this one?
Well, I went from this.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
go back to the, no. Okay, so you say scenario 1, so if we renew the penny and all the numbers are divided up the same as we are now, that is your scenario 1?
That would be scenario 1. Yeah, the baseline scenario would be the penny for Pasco sunsets in 2024 and is not extended beyond, or if it's extended, there's no money for transportation,
Okay,
basically is what we're saying.
Right, so what is it if we just continue what we have now?
That would be scenario 1.
No, then what's the one where there is no penny for Pasco?
That would be what I'm calling the existing revenues or the baseline.
And all this incorporates the projected growth ad valorem taxes and things like that.
Correct.
And the mobility fees staying where they are, where we're giving $5,000 discount per room for every hotel?
Yeah, it would be based on your currently adopted mobility fee.
Can you go to the next slide? And right now, we're giving mobility fee credits to oil changing stores and tire stores and McDonald's on 54. They all get this huge mobility fee credit. Not our targeted jobs now. Okay, so then scenario 1 is,
David, you might want to go over that
Want
properly.
to clarify?
Am I wrong?
They're
Am I
not
wrong?
getting credits, there's the discount
Yeah,
situation.
so it's not really a credit. What the board subsidizes the fees of some uses through the tax increment.
does McDonald's get a subsidized
Yes, if all use, in fact, there's not any, I don't know of any category of fee that doesn't get some level of subsidy.
Just saying, we got one of the hottest markets in the Tampa Bay area, and I don't
So,
think we need to be
but I want to be clear.
giving away the store anymore.
If the board wanted to revisit that decision, that should have occurred when we did the mobility fee update last
Well,
year.
Are you talking the MPO board or Board of County Commissioners?
Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so
But
our
you can
consultant is
weigh in.
using what the board just decided to do last year. I want to be clear, okay? So we're not going to revisit that unless the board tells us, a majority of the board says, go back and revisit the mobility fee you just adopted. So the consultant is using the mobility fee revenue projections that we just, Board of County Commissioners.
But, okay, I get you, but a source of revenue is to maybe not give discounts or whatever to fast food.
And so in the
And
next,
only give it to targeted industries that bring high-paying jobs.
and that's a possibility.
Right.
But we're going to do our next mobility fee update 5 years from now, and at which point we'll be doing the next LRTP update 5 years from now. And so then we could take into account that new revenue in the next LRTP update. But the time period, unless the board wants us to go back and revisit what we just adopted last year, we can't do different assumptions on mobility fees. That's a set revenue based on what the board just adopted last year.
Well, I would be interested to know how much money we're talking about if we just gave the incentives now to the targeted industries. that
With all due
we're
respect,
looking for.
Commissioner, I can't give you that because I have to revisit all the mobility fee. I don't know.
No one can make a guess?
It's not going to be a lot if we're just talking about hotels because we don't have enough hotels. The amount of hotels we get is not significant. If you want to talk about removing the incentive on residential, yes, that's a huge amount of revenue. But if you're just talking about removing the incentives on hotels, and again, I have no,
Fast food stores, tire changing stores?
okay, I don't think that's going to be a huge amount of revenue.
No?
It may be some, but the bulk of our subsidy, where most of our subsidy dollars are going, are office, industrial, and residential. So, yes, if you removed it on office and industrial, that would be a huge amount. If you removed it on
Well, I would want
residential,
to
that
on
would be,
office
that
and
would be a
industrial.
huge amount.
You would not want to use it.
But
I want to keep it on office.
But if you just want to remove it on tire changing stores and hotels and a couple other commercial uses, it's not going to, it's going to be a small little blip on it. It's not going to affect this. So, plus, he can't make that assumption. I want to be clear.
Okay.
Because the board just adopted the mobility fees this last year. If you wanted to do that, I'm just trying to be honest with you, that should have occurred last year. If you wanted to make those changes to the mobility fee.
I tried.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I remember this conversation very clearly, and I tried to do it on apartments, and you guys didn't want to give it for apartments.
But there was,
No, I'm just being honest.
There are, yeah.
So those were answers right then and there we could have taken care of. I even said apartments, and I said mini storage.
We are going to take it off of mini storage.
Mini storage, you could still do,
Yes.
because mini
No, we
storage,
haven't done it yet.
mini storage,
coming.
the board punted on it and said, we'll bring that back to you when we evaluate how we're gonna deal with mini storage. But if you're asking whether the unsubsidized mini storage is gonna affect these revenue projections, absolutely not. It's a small little dollar amount.
Okay, so what?
So what I'm saying is I wouldn't count on small changes to our mobility fees dramatically affecting your revenue.
Okay, I got you. So what we're looking at is, if we renew the penny the way it is today, scenario one is our,
So where's the,
yeah.
yeah, let me try to.
We still got a long way to go here, guys.
Okay, so
This meeting.
the reason he had to show you existing revenues is because we don't know for sure that the board's going to put transportation in again in 2024, when they renew the penny. We think the most likely scenario where you just continue the penny for Pasco the way it is today is scenario one. That's what scenario one is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And if Pasco
Everything
Penny-
after that assumes a new tax that you don't have today.
So we take away the penny, we've got to make up for it somewhere. And these are the scenarios you're offering, right? If the penny were not to pass. And
If
then
you're talking
I'll tell
about
you.
the existing revenue scenario, yes, we would lose the transportation portion of the penny under the existing revenue scenario. But if all you want to do is assume the penny gets extended through 2045 at the same percentage for transportation, that's scenario 1. All those other versions of scenario 2 through 5 assume you're going to do something similar in addition to it like Hillsborough did. Hillsborough adopted an additional penny for transportation.
Is anywhere in here contemplated our contribution towards the BRT?
There are revenues in our LRTP for transit. So yes, some of those revenues could be used for BRT, but if you're asking, do we have an independent revenue source that's for regional transit? The answer is no. And I want to be clear, Commissioner Moore, I don't think the consultant or staff were necessarily proposing a new tax. Your existing LRTP, the one that's adopted today, already assumes that you're going to adopt this new tax at some point in the future. So that's why they're presenting this to you, is because your LRTP today assumes that in the future you're going to adopt this new tax. If you don't want to make that assumption anymore as part of this LRTP, we can take it out, and then you would just go with scenario 1. But they're asking you, do you want to continue that assumption or not? That's what they're asking you.
Mr. Chairman, just
Commissioner
respond. Thank you. I mean, again, you're looking at 2038. I mean, and asking a group of people that, I'm just going to make an assumption.
I won't be here.
That the majority of us won't be up here anymore. So for us to assume something and put a burden on a future board and future MPO members and future city council people and future mayors, I mean, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody's still gonna, maybe one of us will still be here in 2038. It ain't gonna be me. But to put, well, I'm feeling by that time I probably won't. Hopefully I'm retired somewhere, right? But for us to put that burden on future members is concerning to me. You know, I don't think those scenarios should be there.
And again, all they're asking for you is direction.
I know, but David, I'm responding to what you said.
Okay.
Right? And my opinion is, I don't think we should make that assumption.
And I don't know, to defend staff or the consultant, but the only reason they even have it up here is because, one, it's an assumption in your existing RFP.
I understand that.
And because Hillsborough just adopted one. Okay, so it's not like it's totally pie in the sky that it can't happen.
And Fidelis knocked it down, right?
I understand that.
Exactly.
I'm just saying that's why it's here for you.
So this, just clarify for my sake, the way I interpret this is hopefully the penny for Pasco continues, but if not, you have to have a backup plan, correct? So this is just scenario 2 is all the just backup plans, correct, if penny for Pasco?
Yes and no. No, I would say that's totally accurate.
It's not totally accurate, it is?
No, it's not accurate.
Okay.
Because scenario 1 assumes that penny for Pasco just continues.
Yes.
Okay. Scenarios 2 through 5 are, here's additional revenue you could get on top of penny for Pasco.
On top of penny, okay.
So this is a planning exercise, and so ultimately, he's identified that we have $7.6 billion in needs. We're just trying to identify how we can pay for them. And so we're not committing you to anything today, to a measure, to a penny. We just want to be able to go through the exercise and see what the tolerance is, because if the tolerance is nothing, then we know that we have $3.2 billion and we have a $7.6 billion.
Right, and they won't even, staff won't even show you what those would buy. If you want us to take 2 through 5 off the table, we won't even show you what that could buy. We'll just assume that's just not even available. Am I making sense? The purpose of this exercise is exactly what John said. Do you want us to plan out what you could buy out of that deficit, out of the $3-4 million deficit, what could you buy with this additional money? If you don't want us to show you what you could buy with that additional money, we'll just show you scenario 1, and you'll have a deficit, is what we're saying.
And if penny for Pasco was not extended, we'd have an
even bigger deficit,
right.
Yes.
That's where I was thrown off. I didn't realize scenario 2 was assuming penny for Pasco was extended, and then this is just additional revenue funding on top of that. So you don't even have a scenario up there if the penny was not extended, right? I haven't seen that,
Except for the one that says existing revenues.
Okay.
Okay, that's the only one that would be, if you assume the penny is not extended. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. So the clarification, any questions or concerns? What David's up there now?
apologize. Try to not create confusion, and I still create confusion. I apologize for that. So just, we are going to then take the needs out for review through a couple of public workshops, getting this out to the public, making sure that what the public has identified as the needs and the issue areas we're responding to. It is more than just the highway and the transit, although that's what I focused on today. Looking for opportunities to speak at community meetings, so if there are those opportunities, we'll gladly go to those. We are using the project website, the mobilitypasco.com website, for the LRTP updates, so we'll be putting updates out there with this information. The June and July timeframe, that's kind of what we're targeting for that, and hopefully being able to come back to you in August with some updates. And then just one quick last slide. As we transition from the needs and do the outreach over the summer, we'll be developing the cost affordable network, bring back a draft of that to you in August, what the results of those are, come back to you then with a final draft in October before an advertised public comment period, and then seek your approval and adoption in the December meeting.
Mr. Blaine, thank you very much. Any other questions, sir?
Just if we could, we get part of the presentation, but if you could email us all the presentation in total, it'd be great.
Absolutely. I'll send it to John and have it sent.
Thank you very much. We are going to move on, because this next agenda item normally generates quite a bit of discussion. So 2019 list of priority projects. Russ.
Here's where I'm at.
This is just a draft we're going over at this point.
Good afternoon. We're bringing forward a draft of our 2019 list of priority projects. If you take a look, you'll probably see a lot of consistency with last year's list. This essentially is last year's list with projects that have been funded, removed, and a couple of additions that I'll highlight. We're doing this for two reasons. First of all, we have a lot of projects in the hopper already. We've taken note of some project requests that have come in for sidewalk and bike projects that are sort of in a holding tank that we'll add to the list next year. But we wanted to work through this list, give it another year to try to work down some of these projects. We're also on an expedited schedule due to FDOT's request, and that's driven by the legislative schedule next year. I'll mention a couple of highlights in terms of where projects stand and some significant addition. But first, I wanted to say that we are trying to up our game, as John had mentioned, in terms of project readiness, especially for TA projects, transportation alternative projects for bikes and pedestrians. A big hurdle for these projects is, in a lot of cases, is right-of-way availability. That stymied Geiger Road, Councilman Smith, in Zephyr Hills. We would have liked to put that forward. Turns out we need right-of-way. So in the TA list, you'll see under the project information column on the right, in a lot of cases, we need to verify whether there's right-of-way. We're hoping to work with our engineering services folks to do that field work, to establish where we have right-of-way or where we need to acquire it. Where we don't have it, it needs to be acquired for projects to even be eligible for grant funding.
So a few years ago, we got word of a list of a sprinkle, I would say, at the end of the FDOT year. You weren't here. But someone was at a meeting and we got the list of all the projects that got funded that weren't funded. They just got a little bit at the end. And Pasco had none, but Hernando had like 6 projects, and other people had projects, but we didn't have any. And it turned out it's because we didn't have any projects ready to go. So is this what you're kind of referring to?
That's exactly what we're focusing on curing.
So there is a project that we could have on here, that we have all the right-of-way that we need, so that if there is funding like that, we could blow and go, and that is the trail on Gulf Highlands Boulevard. We have all the right-of-way from, what is it, Strawberry to 19, which would connect with the trail on 19, and it's not listed on here, but that is one that could be in the hopper if we wanted to try and get some of that sprinkle.
Okay, which would be subject to technical assessment, and are you saying that you'd want that added to the TA?
Yeah,
list?
yeah.
Is it on the? I'm not familiar with it.
I don't see anyone here that doesn't need something right away, right? Is there any TA that?
As mentioned, we are going to be focusing with engineering services to make this right-of-way determination. We, this past year, working from the 2018 list, that was the first thing we looked at when we went down the list to see if projects were eligible for funding. We looked at right-of-way availability. That's, as mentioned with Geiger, we hit a brick wall there. We ended up applying for funding for Mitchell Boulevard, sidewalk and path.
Because we had the right-of-way?
We have the right-of-way.
Okay, that's what I'm just saying. So, because sometimes it takes years to get all that right-of-way. So
Correct.
if you need to have one that may be lower in the list, but we have all the right-of-way, so we get money that normally wouldn't be coming to us, because none of our other ranked projects have the right-of-way, we could have that one in the back pocket. That's what I'm saying.
Sure. It's quite possible we do have sufficient right-of-way for a lot of these projects, but we need to verify it.
Okay.
When it says right-of-way verification needed, that means exactly that. We need to verify.
I just want to be able to participate, and that's pretty
Russ,
here.
just because I see it on here, I was going to bring it up during communications then, but John, might be a better question for you. Where are we on the feasibility study for the underpass at the Cody River Bridge there on US 19? Because I know we were trying to move it as quickly as possible, and I think we got funded several months ago for the feasibility study, once Port Richey got on board.
They've had a kickoff meeting, they're going to have another meeting, I think, later this week, Ross. So they're moving along, they're starting to assess it, they're starting to bring all the players into it, so it's moving along. So we'll have the county come and give you any kind of update you want.
Yeah, I'm just impatient on this one. It seems like we've approved the feasibility study months and months and months ago, and now we just had a kickoff meeting. So I get a lot of questions from Port Richey to Port Richey residents. It's been out there, it's been in the press. Everybody's excited about it. There's the lack of parking at the Port Richey waterfront is really tough for everyone that tries to get down there. We have hundreds of golf carts registered in the city of New Port Richey alone, and Port Richey has their own registration of golf carts. It would just help alleviate parking, and I'm not going to plead my case too far. We're all on board, but just to hear that we just had the kickoff meeting is disappointing to me.
Yes, well, I mean, that was a couple of weeks ago, but what's pushing it also is the appropriation that we believe we're going to get to for that area. So all of this is coming together quite nicely. So
Well, the governor hasn't approved it yet. We're all.
Awesome.
that's also prompting us because we were worried about when we finish the study and then we'll have to go get money, but maybe some of that.
So it's all tying in at the same time.
Yes, so timing will be good. The study won't take long. A lot of this public outreach, just
Yeah.
making sure we engage all the right.
So what are we thinking, like 3-4 months on the study,
I
or?
think it'll take that long.
No?
I think for a couple, 3 months maybe.
I'm not sure of the time.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll have the county person come and give you an update on what's needed for that.
Oh, that'd be great. For the council meeting, that'd be wonderful, yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just got word that the governor's getting the budget Friday morning, so it'll be on his desk.
Good.
So that's when we'll start seeing what.
This Friday.
This Friday.
And how long does he have? 7? Andy, do you remember how long the governor has on the budget?
I think it's either 10 days or 15 days.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or concerns?
I'll just
Mr.
echo the
Carryover?
same sentiments. It's great to see this, number one, great to see the funding, and hopefully get the appropriation and go with it. If right-of-way project, as Commissioner Stark is saying, is a critical thing to be ready to go to, I think there's a project on here that talks about on Old Dixie Highway, the northern part, which is actually further down on the list. It's all swift mud right-of-way. So that's an easy enough project to do. We're actually working with trying to get FEMA money to work with DEP for a fire road that's there that can actually be used as well as a trail for people. But you can put probably good golf carts on it as well, and then you can also use it for a fire truck to go up and down to protect the area. So if you want to take a look at that one as far as moving it up.
Okay.
And I just want to bring out to everybody, I mentioned earlier about TRIP funding. If you have 2 contiguous counties, County Line Road is like a very heavily traveled road. Years ago, we had it higher on our list, and then Hernando made it lower on their list. They've since come around in the past few years, and I think we've seen some of the reports that they've gotten much more money than we have for different funding, and I think it might have been TRIP funding or otherwise from the state. They are making it a high priority for them. We need to make it a high priority for us. So, John, I'll take some of your coaching on it, or DOT, how to get it elevated to get that project funded, but Hernando's going to pay for 70% of the road the way the funding was set up. We're only going to pay for 30%. So for the money we could get for TRIP funding, which is separate from our regular money, it's a great opportunity for us to go make that move, working together to get the funding on that. So if you would, let's have a little conversation. I know, John, you just talked with Hernando's staff just in the past week or so. Yeah, I know there's 2 commissioners that I've talked to that have reached out to them as well to try to get involved with the meeting. So can you maybe update us or coach us a little bit as far as where we should be going on that and what the benefit is of moving that on the list up, being that it's separate funding, not from a regular pot of money, but separate funding?
So yeah, we can do that, and I think we'd have to work with Debbie Wolf as well, because there'd be some local match, and that may be something on your capital improvement plan side. Both of them have to move up on our list and their list, so that we can coordinate that funding. So you can do it both in the MPO, but you can also do it through your normal BOCC.
And I'll say this, with the commercial section along US 19, with everything that goes up in that area, and I think it's critical to develop it. If you look at the MPO list with all the projects that are on there for the major funding ones, there's nothing in District 5 running up there. This district actually hits myself and Commissioner Oakley as it goes through, but it's the only one that affects it. But I will tell you, with the TRIP funding, with Hernando jumping in, with the split of 70-30, we'll get a great value in a road that is just dangerous, number 1, but tough to get out there for the business, number 2.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Starkey?
I was just about to pull it up, but I was wondering, the apartments that are coming in Commissioner Mariano's district that are at the mall, are they paying any mobility fees, or, I'm just wondering if they can, if this trail would help that apartment complex? I mean,
The
is
answer
that
is,
when you're there?
yeah.
Jack, I'm not really sure where this trail is, but
If you're talking about the apartments that are being sort of the redevelopment project at the
will
mall.
they knock down half the mall?
They're not paying any mobility fees because the board changed the rules in the West Market area that,
Okay.
for redevelopment, that you don't pay mobility fees.
All right, and I'm good with that, all right. I just think, that'll be a good trail for those residents when you get that all going. My other, let's see, I had another question for you. Oh, safety money. That's another pot of money that we've talked about, and I want to have someone apply for some of that transportation safety money for, what's that road in your district? Spring Lake Drive? They widened the shoulder.
41, she's talking about county.
No, they
County Road
widened it in
41.
Hernando County, I believe it's Spring Lake, and it comes to Pasco County. It's the one that the cyclists use.
That's County Road 41, and it comes through from Spring Lake back into 75. Some in Pasco has the bike lanes on it to a certain distance, then it stops and goes back to a narrow road,
So-
back into the Blanton area and back into Dade.
So again, if we could apply for money that doesn't affect our budget, but it's given out, I believe, from that group that's at University of Florida. Let's get some of that in here and put some shoulders on those roads, because people are getting run off the road.
I believe I've been told that their Road and Bridge and the Mike Ball, I believe they apply for that money every year.
I've never seen it, so, there.
For the sake of busy schedules, we'll all
Yeah.
review this list and give our feedback at the next meeting when we go over it. Anything else for Ross?
I don't know, John, I want to thank you for actually talking to us so much about that MPOAC
Yeah.
meeting, for us to go take the course, even though we had taken it before. You can see Commissioner Stark and I are kind of loaded with ammunition here, looking at different ways to go after money, so you're bringing that idea forward. And we weren't the only ones out there taking it again. There are other MPOs where people have taken it even 2 or 3 years ago, that were back
Yeah, I
again.
could see why that
So-
would be very valuable. It's a lot of information.
So thank you. You're going to help us be more productive as commissioners.
That's the purpose of hiring Lee, is to help us be more productive generally. All of the funding, because there's a lot out there, we're not eligible for a lot of it, you want to know what we are, and we're not, make it clear to you so that
I know we appreciate your bringing the idea to us, so thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Move on to FDOT presentation on Tampa Bay Next and other project updates in Pasco. Is Stephen Benson here, a rep from
Yeah, so
FDOT?
Richard Moss had to leave to another meeting, so he sends his regrets, but we'll schedule him for next month. But it's just nice, they like to tell us every 6 months what they're working on in our county.
We'll
So we
forgive
did
him.
send you the PowerPoint, so if you have questions, we'll follow up.
Yeah, just so as a follow-up to that, since we're ending, is that, thanks to the fellow board members, POC members, we did write a letter in support of the current project and the widening of 275, and they have their MPO meeting. Hillsborough has their MPO meeting tonight at, what, 6 p.m.? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But
And thanks for putting that together, I think, Andy, did that, so that's great.
And I read that letter at the TMA meeting out
We
loud.
did.
And we gave it to everybody.
that's
Again.
beautiful.
And moving on, the Pasco MPO is going to host a CCC meeting at the Hilton Garden Inn in Lutz on July 19th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yes, so you're all invited, and we also want to thank Commissioner Starkey for getting that venue for us, so.
And then I just had two comments before we move on. Number one, I just want to applaud the county. The US 19 landscaping that Morelli Landscaping is putting in, it looks fabulous so far from Holiday heading north. It's the same landscape company that we use at the city of Newport Richey. They do phenomenal work, and it really
That's
looks
just
good.
phase one.
Yeah, phase one looks awesome.
4.
And then, John, if you could reach out to the city of Port Richey after the election to see if they can, once they get their council filled again, if we can get a rep from Port Richey to come and sit in with us
Yes,
again.
we have sent correspondence to the city manager, and she assured us after the election that they will appoint someone.
It's a
So I
he,
meant
but-
to tell you that, yeah.
Okay.
So probably won't be till August or September, but
Yes.
they're mindful that they
That they're
have
needed,
us.
yes.
And Mr. Chairman, if I
Any other communications, Commissioner
just
Mariano?
like to say, at the TMA meeting, Commissioner Starkey did a great job chairing it. I think it was great discussion in that letter.
It was a good meeting.
Yeah, it was. And that letter was very well received. There was a lot of positive people, even from Hillsborough, saying they should honor the LTRP, so.
Oh, good.
Well done.
Awesome. Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn then. Never mind, we're adjourning.
Adjourned.